Welcome, all my fellow Redskin brethren and sister. I am your man and resident Redskins fan, Lou. Thank you for joining me here on the Redskins Report. It's a special edition. I've got a couple of esteemed panel guests on the show tonight. I'm honored to have a couple of Redskin vid makers who have had a profound impact not only on the YouTube community but myself while doing these videos. When we're talking Redskins football, you need different perspectives. I love to have my voice out there and have it be heard, but you also need to hear other people and their viewpoints because they may differ from mine or yours or whomever. And so it's always good to have different voices out there that you can go to. And I've had a really good time this season checking out my man Redskins Review. Always a big family member of the show, BFG, over on his channel, BurgundyFlyGuy. So let me first introduce a guy that really needs no introduction here on the Louie Tee Network, here on the Redskins Report, my man BurgundyFlyGuy. You guys know his channel. If you haven't been to his channel and haven't subscribed, shame on you. BFG has been putting out great content for at least 2 years now. So let me first introduce my man BFG. Say hello to the people.
Hello to the people. Thank you very much for having me on your channel here. This is great. When you first contacted me about being on your show, of course, I snatched it up immediately. I moved all the stuff that I had going on tonight, all the championship basketball games I could have been coaching, all the nuclear codes that could have been sent my way. I had to disperse all of it. Tonight had to be free for my boy Louie Tee. So thank you for having me.
Hey, no doubt, man. And I'm glad that you could do this because I think this is a big one. I mean, there's so many changes going on right now in the nation's capital. None bigger right now than the defensive coordinator search and the subsequent candidate that we came up with. I know a lot of Redskins fans aren't happy about that whole situation, the way it played out. We're going to discuss that in great lengths tonight. And a guy that's going to help us do that as well tonight is a guy that I found his channel probably about 6 to 7 months ago. And I've been really, really pleased with what I've seen from him. He's a great Redskin fan, very knowledgeable, and I love his passion. I think that's the thing that probably strikes a lot of us, especially when things aren't going right, even when they're going well. I mean, he's a guy that is extremely passionate, love his work. I'm talking about my man Redskins Review. Again, if you haven't checked him out as well, shame on you. Go ahead and sub up his channel, Redskins Review. Hey, man, how are you doing tonight? Thank you for joining the program.
Good, man. Thanks for having me on. I'm ready to get into some topics, man. I don't want to keep them stalling, man. And the people want to hear from us. Let's jump into it.
All right. So we may have one more person join us a little bit later on. If he does, then we'll talk to him as well. But for right now, I think what we need to start with first, and I think everyone out there, let's see what we got going on. I think everybody out there that's watching right now, if you want to leave your comments, make sure you use the hashtag #LouieTLive to have your comment read as we will be discussing the Redskins at great lengths. And let's start with the hot button topic right now in Redskins Nation. Of course, a defensive coordinator search. Okay, I think a lot of people agreed that Joe Barry needed to be removed from his position as defensive coordinator in Washington. It just was a very unsatisfactory season defensively. Probably the biggest reason as to why the Redskins did not make the postseason this year is because of that awful, woeful defense. Joe Barry was removed 3 days after the Redskins season ended against the Giants in Week 17 on that Wednesday. It took the Redskins almost a full month to find a new head coach. It took them 3 weeks to find a new head coach. And in that time frame, a lot of guys that we felt like were great candidates came off the board, went to other locations. I have my thoughts as to why things happened the way that they did, but I want to start with you, BFG. I saw a video of yours talking about why Redskins fans shouldn't be as excited about Joe Barry being shown the door. And I want you to expound on that a little bit, but also talk about what you made of the search itself that the Redskins were on for a defensive coordinator. And then you can kind of segue into the hiring of a linebackers coach, outside linebackers coach, Greg Minuski, being promoted to defensive coordinator?
Absolutely. When it came to halfway through the season, obviously we started to get a lot of negative feedback on the defensive coordinator, Joe Barry at the time, and he did not necessarily come in here, with a chariot and a team of stallions, and we were all standing in the streets throwing confetti at his presence. He came in here, and we were kind of hoping for the best, but we were kind of shooting for the middle and hoping for not the worst. But it was kind of obvious about halfway through the season that it was looking like it wasn't going to be necessarily a good marriage with this particular defensive coordinator. But me in particular, as a vid maker, I was seeing a lot of content, whether it was on YouTube or whether it was on the news or whether it was over the airwaves, and I was hearing a lot of the same things. And I guess I'm just kind of a contrarian in nature, and you'll notice that in a lot of the videos that I have posted on my channel. But there were things that he was doing as a defensive coordinator that, even though I didn't necessarily like the performance of the football team, I didn't think we necessarily had the horses on the roster to do what it was that they wanted us to do. A lot of people had solutions. A lot of people had comments on what they thought was going to do to make the team actually better. I don't think it was necessarily going to get that much better regardless of the defensive coordinator, unless you got somebody in who was going to give you that 85 Bears type speech that was going to regale your team and have them go out and completely dominate. That doesn't really happen in the NFL. And in my opinion, rushing the passer and putting more pressure on him, if you can't get to that quarterback in 3 to 3.5 seconds, then blitzing is going to be limited. And I was understanding a little bit from our defensive coordinator's packages why he was doing these soft zone coverages. And it's kind of what a lot of what the league does nowadays, to tell you the truth, is they take away the deep stuff, they give you the shallow routes, and then as soon as that receiver gets the ball, they converge on you. The problem is we don't do it very well. We suck at it. We suck at blitzing. We suck at zone packages. And he's got to try to figure out which one of these I'm going to call, which one of these sucky versions of my defense am I going to give the offense. And there are a few, there are not many, but there are a few good quarterbacks out there that if you blitz them, they're going to make you pay. And we faced a couple of them last season. Now, obviously, coming into this next season, coming in with a new defensive coordinator, and one of the bright spots about letting Joe Barry go and bringing somebody else in is that the person you're bringing in now has enough time, barely got into the Senior Bowl, but he's going to come in here early enough to where he can take a look at some talent, take a look at the roster and see what it is. And obviously we promoted from within. So obviously this is not a guy who's completely, inept to our defensive style. He knows the players. He's been there. So that will definitely help. But now he's getting into that area where he can go out and evaluate talent and decide what it is that's going to fit on his team. If the zone coverage didn't work so much last year, then maybe we need some more individuals to help out with that. If we didn't have the pass rushers to get to the quarterback, well, then maybe we need one or two guys out of the draft or free agency to be able to do that, kind of apply that. So we've got a guy who's got some experience. I think I'm in a kind of a wait-and-see mode when it comes to this particular defensive coordinator. But it's all going to be very, very interesting. But I have to agree with you, Louis. This was a situation where we ended up having to let our old defensive coordinator go. The writing was on the wall. It was on the wall early. And if you noticed, I don't think that the cleats were off our boys' feet when we finally ended up firing, this defensive coordinator and started looking for another one. But as far as our selection goes, I think that there were a couple names out there that that people were throwing around, and I was taking a look at a couple of these names, thinking, first of all, the Ryan boys are not coming to DC. They've been asked and they have been talked about for the last 10 years. We've been trying to get them in here for at least an interview. They're not taking interviews from Washington. I think they got something against the owner, but they've stated in years past that even this last year they're not coming to Washington. So I automatically scratched both Rex and Rob off the list. Wade Phillips was kind of a maybe, but it didn't surprise me when he ended up deciding to go over to St. Louis, or actually L.A., I'm sorry. But the one that I was really hoping for in the back of my mind was Gus Bradley. And Gus Bradley, having been a part of that initial birth of the Legion of Boom in 2012, and then getting switched over to Jacksonville, and they actually had a fairly decent defense. I was actually kind of hoping that we would end up getting him, but we ended up passing on him as well and going with Greg Minuski. And like I said, I'm going to kind of wait and see when it comes to evaluating him as the defensive coordinator. But at the very least, I like that we promoted from within, because that's what the good teams do.
Redskins Review, talk to me about the entire process, what you thought about the process, as you watched it unfold, what were your thoughts? And then ultimately, when the Redskins settled in on Greg Minuski, what were your thoughts about that hire as well?
Yeah, I think first things first is I think most people agreed that Joe Barry had to go when everyone's saying the same thing about you. Even the people like me who I kind of drag my feet saying that someone needs to go or this or that. It took me forever to say, you know what, Andre Roberts, it's your time to go, dude. You had enough time. But the thing is that we didn't see was Sean McVay leaving. That really kind of changed a lot because we just didn't really see that. Like, some people thought maybe a year or two from now he would leave us like that. But now we need to find an offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. I think we all agree on bringing in Kavanaugh as our offensive coordinator. That's not really a huge deal. We know Jay Gruden's going to call the plays, so we don't have to worry too much there. But for defensive coordinator, it's just kind of puzzling because we had all these people come in, and I'm sure everyone here is going to agree. Yeah, we love to promote from within. Greg Minuski, he was a player for us. He's a Redskin. He did all this for us. He's been here. But the thing is, he was part of the problem for last year. You know what I'm saying? Like, he didn't do anything outstanding in my eyes. So even though we are promoting from within, it's still kind of, we had to sit here and scratch our heads just a little bit because we had Gus Bradley and we had Mike Pettin in our office. We could have had two head coaches come in and take a step back from being a head coach, and they both were known for decent defense at least, for multiple years. And now we're sitting here with Greg Minuski, which, like I said, like BFG said, we can't sit here and we have to wait and see. There's nothing, and I don't know too much about what schemes he's going to try to run and everything, but there's one other thing I need to say, which, because I keep my pulse on the Redskins Facebook all the time. I look and see what the people are saying, and everyone, people are saying, oh, we didn't get Gus Bradley and we didn't get, Mike Pettin and all this because our head coach, Jay Gruden, he's worried that they're going to come in and they're going to steal his job, or Jay Gruden doesn't want to pick someone who's going to end up stealing his job or whatever. But the thing to that is, if you sit and think about that for 2 seconds, we just had Sean McVay, who just got a head coach job, and we had our last defensive coordinator, Joe Barry. Has anyone ever heard Joe Barry speak? He has this huge aura of like a head coach aura around him. When he's a good guy. He taught, we always loved what we heard from him. He's a good, like, head coaching, like, he has this aura about him that he, like, could be a head coach one day. But the problem with him was he didn't perform. So we already had two guys who could potentially have taken Jay Gruden's job from under him if Jay Gruden didn't perform. So that's just one other thing I had to add in there. But the verdict on Minuski is we have to wait and see. What players are we going to get and what scheme is he going to try to run? I haven't really heard too much about it. I mean, I think he had that one press conference and that was it. We're kind of limited here, but we're definitely going to need some talent, man. We're going to need some talent to help them.
I couldn't agree with you more, and I think that's probably the biggest thing that we have to keep in mind is that, yes, the whole process was frustrating if you're a Redskins fan because there were all these names out there, and I kept coming on and talking about how if you needed a defensive coordinator, this was the offseason to need a defensive coordinator because there were going to be so many candidates out there. And as we watched the candidate pool dwindle, it got really frustrating. But what you have to take into consideration if you're a Redskins fan is that, one, we don't have a lot of talent. This is not an attractive job. I talked about this numerous times, whether it was on the Sean McVay to Los Angeles video, whether it was just on a Redskins video in general. We don't have a lot of talent. So if you ask a coach where they want to go, they're going to go where they're talented football players, which is going to make their job that much easier. And that was Los Angeles. That was Buffalo. That was anywhere but here. Okay, so that was one of the obstacles in our way. Two, Jay Gruden only has 2 years left on his deal. And when you think about it, and these are all things that as a fan, you don't really think about. You don't take these things into consideration. You don't think about the fact that, yeah, Jay Gruden only has 2 years left on his deal. And if you take this job and let's say Jay Gruden offensively takes a step back, let's say Kirk Cousins comes back takes a step back. Let's say the defense is just as bad as it was last year, and instead of 8-7-1, this team is 6-9, 6-10, and Jay Gruden gets fired. You just signed a 1-year deal essentially, and you're gone now, and now you're looking for a job again if you're a defensive coordinator. So it's another reason you don't want to come here. You go to L.A. or you go to Buffalo or you go to L.A. again with the Chargers this time and not the Rams, or you go anywhere but here. You go to Jacksonville. Guess what? You're getting a 4 or 5 year deal as a coordinator because that head coach is going to get a 4 or 5 year deal. So you're going to have time, 3 years at minimum, to at least say, all right, this is where I'm going to be. Time for me to stake my claim and see if I can't get a head coaching job or whatever the case may be. And so that was another thing that was against the Redskins. And then finally, the last thing was they're dominoes that have to fall in the NFL. So the whole Wade Phillips thing was great. We wanted Wade Phillips, but did Wade Phillips want us? That was the question. I don't know if he necessarily – I think in his mind he always wanted to go to L.A., okay? And so that's where the talent was. Sean McVay goes. He's got a relationship with him. Boom, that happened. Then you're thinking, okay, Gus Bradley. Well, the rumor out there was if Anthony Lynn got a job, Gus Bradley was going to follow him wherever he went. Well, the first initial reporting was that Anthony Lynn was going to be the guy in Buffalo. He was a coordinator there. They thought he was going to be promoted to head coach. It didn't happen. So then the assumption was, hey, maybe Anthony Lynn's not getting a job. So Gus Bradley's like, well, I need to hurry up before I find myself out of a seat in this game of musical chairs. Well, then reports come out that Anthony Lynn is going to Los Angeles with the Chargers. And now Gus Bradley's like, hey, hold on a minute. My guy's about to get a job. I'm not coming to Washington now. So all of a sudden you lose another candidate. And all these guys were waiting. Just remember, just because the Redskins didn't get these guys, these guys were waiting. It's not like they were gung-ho to go out and get a job. They were waiting for all the dominoes to kind of fall into place to see what they wanted to do, because they knew, unlike the Redskins, who they needed these guys to want their job. These guys know there are opportunities out there for them. So they weren't in that big of a hurry to get out there and sign their name on the dotted line to be the Redskins defensive coordinator when other opportunities were going to come available. So that was in itself a little frustrating. So it's a situation where the search wasn't great. You knew we were behind the 8 ball. Bottom line is we didn't get any of the guys that we wanted. I don't think. I think when we made Greg Minuski our defensive coordinator, that was a sign that we had to settle. We didn't get the Gus Bradley, and I don't know. I can't confirm nor deny whether the Redskins offered any of these guys contracts, whether it be Wade Phillips, and Wade Phillips didn't even come for a visit. So I highly doubt that Wade Phillips was offered anything. Gus Bradley, don't know if he was offered anything. Mike Patton, I would have loved to have had Mike Patton. I don't know if he was offered anything. I just don't know about all the guys. The Rob Ryan thing was a joke. I never, ever wanted to have him here in any capacity whatsoever. So the whole search to me was just about doing due diligence. They talked about wanting to interview 7 to 8 guys prior to this whole process even getting started. And they did that. They literally interviewed about 7 or 8 candidates before settling in on Greg Minuski. And like I said, it wasn't what we wanted, but at the end of the day, it's what ended up happening. And like Redskins Review said, like BFG said, the situation with bringing in Minuski as our defensive coordinator, the one thing I can't say is that he was part of the problem. I can't say that he was or not, because I feel like they got rid of all the guys that they felt like were part of the problem, whether it was secondaries coach, whether it was defensive line coach Rob Akey. They got rid of all the guys that they felt like weren't doing their job.
Whatever, the strength and conditioning coach, even down that far,
right?
Strength and conditioning,
right. So I think they got rid of all the people that they felt like weren't doing their job at a good enough level, at an adequate enough level to continue to call themselves a part of this Redskins staff. So this whole situation, it leaves a little bit of a bad taste in your mouth, the way that this whole thing someone said this to me a while back. I don't recall who I was speaking with, but someone said to me, this reminds me of the Jim Zorn search. And this had an eerily similar feeling to it. I swear it did.
It wasn't that bad.
You know what? The only thing that this was missing, other than the Zorn search had, was that, remember, they threw out the whole Jim Fossil thing then, and
Yeah.
kind of revolted, like, no, he can't be our coach. If he's our coach, I'm trading in my season tickets. Like, fans literally vetoed that move and forced them to go back to the drawing board. That's the only thing that didn't happen here. Other than that, this felt Zornish because we took a really long time. We interviewed all these candidates. No one wanted. I don't think anyone wanted this job. Like, seriously, when we got Jim Zorn as our head coach, no one, that our job might have been at its lowest point right there.
Yeah.
After Gibbs left, no one wanted this job. It was a really bad job. And I think it might have even been worse once Zorn left, but luckily Mike Shanahan came back and restored a little order here. But not to get off subject, it felt Zornish. It did. And I forgot who actually said that to me, but I was like, man, you're right. This thing feels Zornish. But they go with Greg Minuski, an in-house candidate. He's been a coordinator. The last time he was a coordinator was in Indianapolis. It was not good. It was not good. He was fired. That's how he ended up here in Washington. I'm not blown away by his work previously. I'm going to tell you right now, I am not thrilled about this, but I'm going to take the wait and see approach. One thing's for certain. Whomever comes in here, and we already know who it is going to be Greg Minuski. They're going to need more horses. Like BFG said, we don't have the guys, and that's part of the reason last year I kept saying that, look, don't blame this all on Joe Barry. Don't blame this all on Joe Barry because we don't have the guys. We need at least another 5, possibly 6 starters on defense. Did you hear what I just said?
Yep.
5 or 6 new defensive starters.
We only got 7 draft picks.
We just need to clone to Cravens and make him play multiple positions.
I think he's going to be our starting safety next year, and I want him to be because that's his most natural position.
He's really vocal about it too. He wants to. That's what he wants.
That's what he wants, and that's where he should be. And so we need a lot of help defensively. So as much as we wanted Joe Barry out of here, and I think Joe Barry just didn't do enough with the talent that was given to him, whether we only had 1 or 2 or 3 guys that were even good on defense, it doesn't matter. It's all about getting those guys to understand a philosophy, a concept, and doing what you tell them to do or else. And I don't think that was instilled in the players that, hey, look, either you're going to run it the way I want you to run it or you're not going to play. And so we find ourselves sitting here discussing Greg Minuski as our new defensive coordinator. Let's switch lanes.
Well, hold on. I got a comment real quick, just to expound on what you were talking about with the defensive coordinator search being somewhat Zornish. If you go back a little bit into Redskins history, Joe Gibbs, I think, was the dilemma. Obviously, the line of demarcation, if I want to use a term that's coming out of my head. But if you think before Joe Gibbs was a Hall of Fame coach, had coached for us before, had brought us Super Bowls. But if you think about the coaching search before that, guys, you take a look at the history of the individuals that we had before that. I mean, North Turner had a stint from 94 to 2000. After him, I mean, we had Marty Schottenheimer and Steve Spurrier. We had a reputation of hiring you and firing you, and that was all our owner. And then I think that the Joe Gibbs hire was kind of our last-ditch effort to gain any sort of credibility. Joe Gibbs brought so much credibility back to this franchise. It didn't matter what he did. He had a blank check to do whatever he wanted. And he brought in all of his guys, and he brought in his team of people. And then after that, who do you get after that? You end up getting Mike Shanahan, another Hall of Fame coach, who ends up going the full stint of his career, or actually his contract. It was a 5-year contract that we had with him. And there's a lot of these coaches that don't forget what the old Washington Redskins were like with Dan Snyder at the helm. They don't necessarily want to come here and be, now that they don't have a Hall of Fame coach at the helm and be that, hire him today and fire him tomorrow type philosophy. But the interesting thing about this situation now is that, I was really, really hoping with this coaching search, the whole thing that was the fly in the ointment with this reputation, the thing that I was hoping was going to give us a little bit of credibility when it came to interviewing these defensive coordinators was the guy who's in charge of picking the ingredients on this football team, and that's Scott McLuhan. I was hoping that, maybe with the advent of a Scott McLuhan who's in charge of things, who's got the ability to say yay or nay on personnel, on draft picks and stuff like that, maybe if I was a coach that was adamant about not necessarily wanting to come to Washington because of who the owner is, I'd also take a look at, well, wait a minute, I got Scott McLuhan that's calling the shots over there. I think I might give Washington a shot as long as he's there. So that was one of the things that I loved about signing a Scott McLuhan, is that maybe he could bring a little bit of this credibility if we don't have that, that Joe Gibbs or that Mike Shanahan at the helm. So
it's a really frustrating scenario, the way that this whole defensive coordinator search panned out. But like I said, when you don't have the horses, and I think that's what it all boiled down to, this wasn't an attractive defensive coordinator job. If you're looking to maintain any kind of status in league circles, if you want another job after this one, whether you're looking to be promoted to head coach somewhere else, as use this job as a stepping stone, or you're just looking to remain relevant as a defensive coordinator and not have to be bussed down to a positional coach or run off to college football somewhere or be somebody's assistant, on their staff just to keep a job in the league. This wasn't the job to take because it just wasn't an attractive job. There wasn't enough players. There aren't enough guys that are difference makers. The next guy that comes in here, and we know it's Greg Minuski now, he's going to struggle next year. There's no doubt about it. Even if we go out and get players in free agency and we go out and draft a couple of guys, we're still going to be at best a middle of a pack defense, which might be good enough for us to win if the offense plays like they did last year. But we're still not going to be one of the better defenses in the league. So I just didn't think that this was an attractive job for a lot of guys out there. If you had options, this was not going to be first, second, or third on your list. If you didn't have options, and a guy like Greg Minuski doesn't have options, there are other teams beating down our door trying to talk to Greg Minuski to make him their defensive coordinator. This guy's had like 5 different defensive coordinator jobs prior to being promoted to the Redskins defensive coordinator job. So it's not like this guy's being courted by other teams. He didn't really have anyone else asking him to do this. So he was pleased to take this opportunity to get back into the coaching ranks as a defensive coordinator. So we'll see how it goes. I'm not overly thrilled by this whole search and the way it unfolded in the ultimate candidate that we came up with. I'm not really that thrilled at all, but we'll see how it goes. Let's get to some comments before we move on to our next topic of discussion. Redskin Fan 21 says, can we do more of these Redskin Report live shows? And he wants to know if Fat Rob should be the running back for the Washington Redskins in 2017. I'll throw that question to you guys. We'll start first with Redskins Review. What's your outlook for Fat Rob in 2017? Jay Gruden has already said that he's going to start camp as the guy. Do you believe he deserves that opportunity? And do you see him being a guy that can be the Redskins feature back moving forward?
Yeah, I do. I don't think the question should be so much about Fat Rob. I think we know what he is now. Like, we've had enough. That guy just fights for more yards. Honestly, unless he has a completely different character switch from last year, I think we know who he is, and I think he's a grinder, and that's someone we need, seeing that we're probably not going to run it that much. But I think the other questions really are going to lie in, what do we do with Matt Jones? I think we should keep him. If we need to see what he can do. I'm not saying we should have him start over someone like Mac Brown. I think Mac Brown and some of the other guys deserve to start over Matt Jones, but there are other questions at the running back position. And we also need to draft and bring in more guys. I know that's something our GM talks about all the time as competition. But I think it's somewhat kind of obvious at this point. We don't really have many other options. And I think Rob Kelly is a pretty good option for us right now, as long as our offensive line learns how to run block. They're good at pass blocking, but as long as they continue to evolve and get better at run blocking, I think we're headed in the right direction.
Rob Kelly, BFG, starting running back material or no?
Do I think he's starting running back material? No, I do not. I don't think he's starting running back material, but I tell you, I like him. Yeah. I like him a lot. I think he's a great, for right now, I think he's a great change of pace back for us. I think he was really, really good at being able to come in there. You send your lead horse in there to pound out some good yardage, and then you throw a little bit of speed at him. There's a lot of NFL teams out there that are doing that, and I really kind of liked having that option. And to tell you the truth, Robert Kelly, I like Robert Kelly. I am tired of the beast mode comparisons. We need to stop with the beast mode comparisons. He's not Marshawn Lynch. I don't even necessarily think he's close to a Marshawn Lynch, but Robert Kelly is a good back. I think he needs to have a little bit more vision at the line of scrimmage, though. I think he needs to see his gaps a little bit better. He does tend to be a little bit like Matt Jones in the fact where if he sees a gap, he's just going to go for it and shoot for it and just bury his head. He's got the ability and he's got the lateral movement. He's got to get, I don't know if it's confidence or what, or just time behind the football. But I do believe there's definitely room for improvement. But one of the things I love about the running back position on any team, especially ours, is the advent of competition in the offseason. You need to have competition. That was one of the things that I think I learned from Mike Shanahan when it comes to his running back scenario, is that he's going to bring you in here and he's going to have you thinking your job ain't safe. You got to perform in practice. You got to perform on that first team offense. You got to be able to show that you deserve to be on that football field. And if you ain't going to show you deserve to be on that football field, you're not going to be on that football field. And right now, Matt Jones is figuring that out. You can have all the rushing yards you want, but if you cough up that pill, you're going to be sitting down. You're going to be standing on the sidelines in your shorts and your T-shirt with a clipboard in your hand, watching your competition go out there and play and do a better job than you. You got to hold on to the pill. You got to put up a better performance. But right now, this coming off season, this is going to be an area for a lot of Redskin fans to watch, is this running back position. Even if we grab a couple more, competition is good. I don't like paying a whole lot of money, and I think I would have to agree with Redskins Review. I think he's onto something there. Keeping Matt Jones, he's on a rookie deal, so why not? We're not paying him exorbitant amount of money, so throw him in the mix and see if he's going to be able to come back, because everybody loves a good comeback story. Everybody wants to see him improve. So who knows? Other than that, I like our situation now. We could use a little bit more improvement on offensive line to help out with these running backs, but these running backs can also improve as well, and hopefully we can see that in 2017.
Yeah, I agree. I think that we can upgrade the position. I like Fat Rob a lot. He really exceeded all my expectations. You guys know how I felt about him in the preseason. I didn't think there was much there. So for him to come in and do what he did throughout the course of the regular season was very impressive. But that being said, we could definitely use a guy that could come in and change the game. I don't know if we have that guy on the roster currently in one package. I love what Chris Thompson brings to the table as a receiver and his explosiveness when he gets the football in his hands. I like what Fat Rob can do in terms of running tough, breaking tackles, things of that nature. But like BFG said so eloquently, his vision is not the greatest. Hasn't played in a pro-style offense. This is his first time really getting meaningful reps. At Tulane, straight shotgun, straight pistol, a lot of spread, read option type stuff. So this is his first time actually having to read the line of scrimmage and make proper cuts and press the hole and all of those things. And he needs a lot more work. So if we could get a more polished runner, a guy that could be explosive, that could, and I'm just throwing this out there. I don't know if it'll happen or not. And honestly, I'm not in that mode right now of thinking. But if Dalvin Cook is sitting there at 17, do you pass him up? We need help defensively, and I'm a big proponent of, look, the first 2 or 3 picks this draft need to be defensive players. Mm-hmm. But if they were to take a Dalvin Cook at 17, would I be upset? No, I wouldn't, because the running game does need a shot in the arm. Yeah. And we talk Kirk Cousins all the time, Kirk this, Kirk that. Well, he's doing everything without a run game, and if he can get a back in here that can be a little bit more dynamic, I'm all for it. Let's see what else we got. Sergio Pinto Tapia says, didn't I say that we were going to interview Greg Minuski? We took too long and lost all of our candidates. You did say that, and the thing was, it wasn't that we took too long. It was a waiting game. These candidates knew that guys are going to get jobs, vacancies were going to open up, and they were going to have opportunities better than here. And so they wanted to talk to the Redskins just to make sure, hey, are you guys interested? Because I'm interested. If other things don't fall into place for me, I know I can come back here and get this job. But let it be known that I'm not choosing this as my first location. Just want to see what you guys have to offer. So it wasn't so much of we weren't in control of this situation. That's the thing that really sucked. We weren't in control. This was really up to the candidates. Did they want to come here? And they didn't, as you saw. Corey Fitterman says, man, family, I do love the Tom Sula hire for our defensive line. Let's talk about that. Let me throw that.
Yeah, that's something I was about to say when we skip past the whole defensive coordinator thing. I was about to say we forgot to talk about that, because I've already had 49ers fans hit me up saying that our defensive line will change and for the better with that hire. So, I haven't been following him, but I know obviously if he's a 49er or was with the 49ers, he probably knows our GM some. That's probably one of the reasons why he's here. And hey, if people are already telling me this, I'm happy, man.
BFG, talk to us about the Jim Tomsula hire. Do you not know anything about him? How do you feel about it? If you do, talk to me about the Tomsula hire on the defensive line, replacing ex-defensive line coach Rob Akey.
Honestly, I think my opinion kind of runs parallel with Redskins Review. I've got a couple San Francisco 49er fans who know their team very, very well, and I believe I shot out a text message to both of them the morning that I had received the information that we had hired him, and they both said the same thing. They said that he's one of those guys that's going to be able to improve that defensive line of yours. If you guys, of course, if you have the roster to be able to do that, he's definitely somebody who could be a game changer. But the interesting thing about him, I'll have to admit, when I saw him, that was probably the one hire that we made laughing out loud. It had nothing to do with him personally. It had nothing to do with his abilities as a coach. But it was ironic. It really was, and how poignant that it's the Washington Redskins franchise that suffers from irony the way that it does. Because I don't know if you guys have been listening to the 106.7 The Fan show, the Grant and Danny show. For the entire 2016 season, they had excerpts from his interviews, and he's not a great interviewer. He likes to grunt and moan and do all kinds of stuff, and they've been doing it all year long, kind of making fun and poking jabs at the guy, and now he's on your coaching staff. I just thought that was hilarious. When I saw that name, I was like, oh no, now we're going to have to wear it. We've been picking on this guy for over a year now, and now he's on our team. I just thought that
See, the thing about Jim Thompson, and this is the thing that I think people really get a little displaced, with, is when they see a guy fail as a head coach, they just automatically think the guy's not a good coach. Mm-hmm. He may not be a good head coach. Doesn't mean he's not a good positional coach.
Yeah.
Same thing with Mike Patton. When we interviewed him, I had a lot of Redskins fans saying, oh, Mike Patton, he was horrible as the Browns head coach. But do you remember Mike Patton, the Jets defensive coordinator? Do you remember Mike Patton, the Bills defensive coordinator? Because in both of those spots, he was phenomenal. So I was all for Mike Patton coming in here if he meshed well with Jay Gruden and his staff and in the front office, which I don't know if he did or not, because reports where he's a no-nonsense guy. And, Jay's a big energy guy, which is why he hired Joe Barry in the first place. So Tomsula, another high-energy guy. And I think Redskins Review probably pretty much summed it up, that this is one of those Scott McLuhan links back to the San Francisco days, and he's comfortable with Tomsula. Tomsula did a really good job for their defensive line. If you remember Justin Smith and those guys up front, Ray McDonald, when they were at their peak, when they went to the Super Bowl in 2012, Tomsula was in control of that defensive line, and he was damn good. And those players were damn good, and they played well for him. And I expect the same here. I thought that was a really quality, solid hire. Of the hires that we made this offseason, to me, that was the one that stood out the most.
Well, he has my permission to draft a Justin Smith type talent on that defensive line. I mean, I'm not going to oppose any decision like that. So by all means, bring somebody like that in here.
Yeah, we could use one of those for sure. Sergio Pinto Tapia says, no one wanted to be the DC for the Skins because we got no dogs. All we got is some golden retrievers. We need some mean pit bulls and Rottweilers. That's spot on. I mean, I don't think there's any disagreement from anybody on the panel, anyone on the panel here with that one. Jolt EXE24 says, with all the offseason chatter coming out of Redskins Park, what is your stance on all of the noise? I mean, nothing overly negative is coming out of Redskins Park right now. We may not like the process that they're going through with these hires and some of the decisions that they're making. The Kirk thing is still pretty much under wraps. We don't know how that's going to go. But nothing really negative is coming. It's just a bunch of noise. But it's not anything that BFG would come out with a show over. You know what I mean? So it's just noise. But it's annoying, but it's not anything that's going to make us as Redskins fans bury our heads in the sand or anything like that. So I don't have a problem with anything right now. They haven't done anything that I disapprove of. I think they literally had to settle at defensive coordinator, and it is what it is. Blackbird Blitz says, sporting the burgundy and gold, like it. Looking good, B. Boba says 3 of the best to ever do it on YouTube. Couldn't miss this. Hey, they're giving y'all some props over there, man. Joe EXE24 says, I agree. Wish I could join in live. I got some strong opinions on the Skins as well. Melvin Glowson says, do you think the new defensive coordinator can bring passion, energy, and excellence? That remains to be seen. I think the guys on the panel have already stated that we don't know. It's a waiting game. We honestly can't say that he's going to do what he did in San Francisco, which was phenomenal there, or is he going to do what he did in Indy where he was terrible? You don't know. He's had so many different stops. The talent level is vastly different here than it was in San Francisco when they were good. It's more similar to the talent or lack thereof that he had in Indy when he ended up getting fired because he didn't do a good enough job there. So hard to say, but we'll see. DMV Pride 10 says, have you checked out the Senior Bowl practices? Any favorite prospects yet? Haven't gotten into all of that stuff. I'm kind of doing my pre-prep work now. So expect me, once the Super Bowl is done, to take about a week to really get everything kind of lined up. And then I'm going to hit the ground running, and we'll be talking draft from here until the end of April.
So you got your plane tickets sequestered?
Yeah, oh yeah. Got to have at least 1 week.
You're going to be there inside, Mike.
Sergio Pinto Tapia says, I thought we were going to get Gus Bradley, but we took too long. I don't necessarily think this was a take too long type of situation. I don't think Gus wanted to come here, especially after his buddy Anthony Lynn got a job. That's where he was going to go. So, again, the assumption that a lot of us fans make is that we're in control of these candidates. And if we offer the job, they're automatically going to take it. That's not necessarily the case. And in fact, that's not the case at all. These guys have options. We went after some big names. They had options, and those other options were better than the option to come here. So I don't think that it was necessarily we took too long and guys decided to go elsewhere. They knew dominoes were going to fall, and some of those were going to be beneficial to them, so they just wanted to wait.
Well, one of the things I think that is important to mention in that as well is that, you understand kind of what the process is like for some of these individuals that you want to bring in and interview. Just because you bring them and interview them does not necessarily mean that, if they say yes, you're going to hire them necessarily. Sometimes you already know that individual is probably going to go somewhere else. But does that mean you not, offer them a plane ticket out and interview them? No, you kick the tires on that situation and see what's going on. Bring them out anyway. It's kind of your job to do that, to utilize all of your options that are available for you. So if you think that a Pettine is not necessarily going to come to Washington because he's got his eyes on something else, that doesn't mean that either side of that negotiating table doesn't want to at least get together and say, hey, what's going on? This is what we're offering, whatever. And if it doesn't work out, hey, it doesn't work out. But you're not going to know unless you bring them out.
Right. I couldn't agree with you more. I think that was part of just doing the due diligence. And the Redskins, they did that. And they actually did that when they hired Jay Gruden, if you remember, too. They had at least 4 or 5 candidates coming here before they settled in on Jay Gruden. So this is what Bruce Allen and company has done over the life of being in Washington. They've really taken their time with these hirings. Even with Scott McCloughan, we went through a long process before they settled in on Scott McCloughan. So this isn't unprecedented. This is what they do. And I just think this time, unlike the other times where we made hires, there just wasn't a lot of juice here. Our job wasn't attractive to the candidates out there. DMV Pride 10 says there's a small echo. Someone needs to lower their volume. I don't know which one of that us. I haven't heard of echo, but that might be the case for people.
I haven't heard that either.
Corey Fitterman says Minuski did help Trent get his career high in sacks this year, and Ryan Kerrigan to double-digit sacks again. Yeah, I do wish he got more out of Preston, but he did good with the others. I agree with you, especially with Trent Murphy. I was so impressed with Trent Murphy. He was literally on the verge of not being on his team. Arguably on the fringe of making this roster to, you could argue, the best pass rusher we had, because even though Ryan Kerrigan got double-digit sacks, no one is going to sit here and tell you that Ryan Kerrigan is elite. So I actually thought that Trent Murphy was our best pass rusher last year, to be honest with you. I think Kerrigan fell into a bunch of sacks. I can think of at least 3 of his sacks where he wasn't even blocked. Yeah. Okay. He just ran in and got a freebie.
Versus the Eagles every time we played the Eagles.
Seemed like he was getting freebies. Yeah. And then they had that one game where the first game we played them was the first game without Lane Johnson. and he went off on like Vitae, the
Yep.
rookie right tackle, for like 2 or 3 sacks in that game. So I think he got a lot out of Trent. So I'm anxious to see what he does. It's much easier to work in a room with 4 or 5 guys and get the most out of them. It's a lot different when you have to put together the defensive game plan and make calls in the game and get guys to perform. We'll see how he does with that. Corey Fitterman also says, is Manusky staying with the same 3-4 base? Let's talk about that. I want to throw that. That's a really good question, and I want to throw this out to the panel, and we'll start with BFG on this one. Would you have been in favor of the Redskins making the switch from a 3-4 base? And again, let's keep this in mind. The Redskins are only in their base package 30 to 35% of the time anyway. They're generally in nickel with the way the league is run now. But would you have been in favor of the Redskins? Say Gus Bradley comes on board. He's more of a 4-3 guy. Would you have been in favor of the Redskins making the switch from a 3-4 back to a conventional 4-3 base defense?
Absolutely not. I would not be in favor of that. I remember the switch from a 4-3 to a 3-4 base defense. We lost a couple really good players because of that. We lost some good linebackers we also had some good defensive linemen that we lost because of that deal. This goes back to the Albert Hainsworth days. But you're taking a look at individuals. We ended up having to move over to a linebacker spot, because one of the things about a 3-4 defense is that you need a lot of linebackers. You take a look at the history of a Scott McLuhan, and when he's signing individuals in the offseason, or when he's drafting players, he throws a lot of linebackers at the wall to see what sticks. And you kind of have to. You need a lot of depth at that position, and you need to find out what chemistry works in what situation. So you need a lot of linebackers, and we lost some really good defensive players because we switched. Now, it's easier, from what I understand, that is easier to switch from a 4-3 to a 3-4, but it is extremely difficult to switch from a 3-4 base back to a 3 or a 4-3. So it's almost the exact opposite effect. It's going to, in my opinion, from what I understand, if we're going to want to switch back to a 4-3 defense, it's going to take a couple years for us to get the roster to where we need it to be successful. And with the patience level of all the fans in Washington, they're not going to go for a 2 to 3 year rebuild of a defense. So right now, there are a few teams out there that are able to make that base defense work. But if you've already got the personnel to run a 3-4, then run your 3-4. That's what I would have us do. It makes you a little bit more versatile. Again, like you said, we're only in it for a short period of time anyway, but I don't necessarily know if I want to see some of these individuals that we drafted under the idea that we were going to go to a 3-4 only to have us switch the defense, and now all of a sudden they're worried about their jobs. So that's definitely one of the things that would really kind of scare me. And this is honestly, if you think about it, guys, this comes up every year. There's topics that hit the Redskins fan base every single year, and this definitely is one of them. Right along with the name change, it's the changing of the base defense. So this is nothing new.
Redskins review: 3-4, 4-3. What says you?
To me, it doesn't really matter. Whatever gets the most production. And to me, I had a lot of people hitting me up last year saying that during this past season, we had the personnel to run a 4-3 better. Think about having people like Trent Murphy get after the quarterback more so than filling up lanes and stuff like that. So I'm really not sure. I'm just saying whatever works. We've had 3-4, and we do have a decent amount of linebackers that, they might not be complete starters, but we have probably some of the most depth at linebacker, so it kind of makes sense for the 3-4 right now. But whatever. I mean, if they change something and it works, or if they stay with something and it doesn't work, I mean, it's all about results, man.
This is a results-based league. I agree with you, and I wasn't opposed to switching to a 4-3. I really wasn't, because we still don't have a true nose tackle, which is just paramount in a 3-4 defense. We've been chasing that ghost since we made the switch back when Shanahan came in 2011 and made the switch over to a base 3-4 defense. We never have gotten that guy. We've been chasing that ghost. I think Kerrigan and Preston Smith would both benefit from just putting their hand in the dirt. That's what they did in college. So I wasn't opposed to 4-3. But at the end of the day, I think the way we've set up our roster and look, if you're gonna play a 3-4, you have to have a safety that can come down and fill. We haven't had that guy either. So we're missing some of the essential pieces of a 3-4 defense. And so if we were going to make the switch, I didn't have a problem with it. But if we're going to stick with the 3-4, which I think our personnel suggests that we do, then you need to go out and get those players. We need a nose tackle. We can't run from that anymore. We need a safety that's going to come down and fill as that final defender and get into the backfield like a Landon Collins, even though he plays in a 4-3 defense. We need a guy like that can play around the line of scrimmage, a Ha Clinton Dix that will come down and make plays in a 3-4 defense as a strong safety, or Eric Berry even. So we need to upgrade some positions if we're going to stick with this 4-3 or 3-4 defense. But Minuski is definitely going to stick with the 3-4 because that's been his base defense throughout the tenure of his career. Blackbird Blitz says, can you have your guests explain to us non-Skins fans what their YouTube channels are about? So they want to know what your channels are about. We'll start with Redskins Review, and then we'll make our way to BFG, because if you watch my channel for any amount of time, then you have been exposed to BFG's channel numerous times on this very channel. But Redskins Review, talk to us about your channel and what you have been providing for Skins fans for what seems like a little while now.
Yep. My channel's been around this is the second season, the end of the second season. And I basically just talk mainly about the Redskins. If there's some bigger topics in the NFL, like changing some rules, or, changing the kickoffs back or something like that, obviously I'll touch on the bigger subjects, but my niche here is obviously just pretty much Redskins. And, I do videos throughout even the off season or whatever. I'm not going to go away. We have had a little bit of a break here while we were sitting here searching for a defensive coordinator. But my mainstay is the Redskins, man. I don't really know too much about the whole college football. You're not going to hear me talk college football or anything like that. Just Redskins football. That's pretty much it.
BFG, talk to the people about your channel and what content you've been providing for Redskins fans for about 3 years now.
Well, my channel, I talk obviously about the Washington Redskins football team. I cover pretty much all of the games. At the end of each game, I come out with a review. I list statistics. I talk about what it is that I saw, what it is that I felt we did good, and what we needed to improve on. And then, of course, I've also got another segment where I have rant videos where I pick a topic. Usually it's a topic that is probably circulating in the media or through social media at that particular time, and I'll weigh in on that. One of the things that I think that is important to know about me is that I'm not a pomp and circumstance individual. I do not throw confetti. I don't stand in the parade. I'm one of those guys that takes a look at what's going on in the media, and I've obviously got something contrary to say, because I always try to take a look at the different angles and the different sides to every story, as opposed to what it is the media is trying to shove down your throat. And I think a lot of that just stems from my frustration over the last couple of years, seeing things a certain way and not necessarily going with the grain. So when you subscribe to my channel, you're going to get videos that are going to be somewhat controversial to a certain extent, because I try to offer a different opinion. I don't necessarily want to come out and say that I'm right. That's one thing that I will definitely I want to reiterate now, is that I am not going to sit here and say I'm right and you were wrong. What I try to do is offer an alternate opinion, as opposed to what I hear a lot of other people saying. So that's pretty much the idea of my channel. I've got a couple other segments that I got coming up here. I've got a video here that I'm going to probably upload tomorrow, where I'm going to start getting into covering the NFC East and all of the news and some of the regular stuff and the articles that are coming out on all the three other teams. So if you are not caught up on all the information that's going on with the Giants and the Eagles and the Cowboys in our division, you don't necessarily want to look some of that stuff up. Maybe you can hit my channel and watch one of those videos where I will upload, where I pretty much kind of give you a little bit of information on what's going on in the league or in our division.
Yeah, and I remember you once upon a time had a segment called Behind Enemy Lines, where you used to do something similar to that. So I'm looking forward to that from you, BFG. So those guys do a great job on their respective channels. Make sure you check them out, and I'll give them a chance at the end to plug their channels, their different social media platforms as well.
And one of the things I'd like to add here as well, if you were watching this video, and obviously we've got some people online that have some very, very strong opinions about teams that they're passionate about. You don't necessarily have to be a Redskins fan to do this, but if you feel like you have something to say, then by all means, get a camera cam up and voice that opinion. One of the things that I am going to respect about Redskins Review, and one of the things I love about his channel and about his opinion, is that he's a young vid maker. And we don't have a whole lot of young vid makers that are coming out and posting videos. And that's something that I think that a lot of teams lack. Some of these guys come on and they're really, really, really young, where they're in high school and they just come in to just be stupid. But Redskins Review obviously is an individual that's passionate about his team and watches his team and reads a lot of sources outside of just watching the game, and wants to kind of expound on that passion through his videos. So if you feel like you have that ability, by all means, we could use more vid makers, and we could do more stuff like this when we get on with the king of all Redskin vid makers, Louie Tee, and show up for his Redskins Round Table. By 2017, we hope to have at least about 5 or 6 more people on a show. Right. So that'd be great.
Right, that would be awesome. No doubt. And I'll take a couple more comments and then we'll move on to our next topic of discussion, and we'll get back to the comment section. But RG3 hashtag says, do you see a team hiring Joe Barry? The Los Angeles Rams have already done so. They've made him an assistant head coach.
Yep.
He's also the linebackers coach for the Los Angeles Rams. So Sean McVay taking some of the Redskins staff along with him, or ex-Redskins staff along with him. Look, Joe Barry was a really good guy. It killed Jay Gruden to have to get rid of him. Literally, the day he was fired, Jay Gruden and him went out for drinks that night. So, he's a good guy. They didn't want to get rid of him. And really, to be honest with you, it was going to be tough for anybody who had this job to be successful. But Joe Barry just didn't do enough to remain the defensive coordinator here in Washington. So let's switch gears and talk about the offensive side of the football. I think the offensive coordinator situation is pretty easy to explain as to what was going to happen. I did that about 2 weeks ago. That's not a surprise. The Redskins promoted from within, because obviously the offense is where you need it to be. You got guys that you trust in-house. Jay Gruden is going to call the plays, which he was very successful at doing in Cincinnati, and that's part of the reason why he got this job. So he's going to do that now. And you promote Matt Cavanaugh from within. He comes as the quarterback coach, and he's been very intimate and close with Kirk Cousins over the last couple of years. So you feel like there's not going to be as much change in that offensive room. But I think the thing that's still really fascinating for Redskins fans is that same discussion. Kirk Cousins, do you, don't you? How much is too much? Are you wasting money by franchising him yet again? The whole putting equity into the house versus renting, and buying the home, renting, that type of thing. What are you guys' opinion on Kirk Cousins? I definitely want to start with BFG on this one, because me and Redskins Review have been doing videos, more so Redskins Review than myself, but we've done videos about Kirk Cousins and him needing to be here in Washington, and the Redskins needing to get a long-term deal done. So where we stand there. But BFG is actually currently in the process of doing a series on why the Redskins should move on from Kirk Cousins. He's now on part 2 of his series. So BFG, we're going to clear out the floor. We're going to give you the floor to tell us as Redskins fans the opposite opinion as to keeping Kirk Cousins or getting rid of him. You say the Redskins should move on from Cousins. Why? BFG, you there? Did we lose you?
Uh-oh.
I think we might have lost BFG. All right. Well, I'll go to you then, Redskins Review.
Mm-hmm.
We both share the same sentiment on Kirk. I think that we need to build our team around Kirk Cousins. I think he can get better. What do you feel is the best thing for the Redskins to do? How do you feel about the whole Kirk Cousins situation? And talk to me about what the Redskins need to do in order to help Kirk Cousins improve if he's going to remain the Redskins quarterback for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, it's this whole process is somewhat crazy to me because I was thinking about making a video and basically naming the video. Redskins, we don't deserve Kirk Cousins. If after everything he's done for us, the way that we are still looking at this negotiation and thinking maybe there's someone out there that could do the same job or a better job than him, after he already bet on himself and won, I think we should have already learned from our lesson that, these quarterbacks don't grow on trees, man. And sure, everyone wants to think that most people like myself who are just ready to jump up and say, yeah, sign Kirk Cousins. Like, we're not sitting here thinking about the negative aspect of paying out a lot of money. But, we can't sit here and go under the franchise tag again. Kirk Cousins has said he'd play under the franchise tag again. He has just today. He said that he doesn't mind playing under a franchise tag again. And Scott McClellan on the off season or during the season, he's already said that he will. We're not. Everyone was saying, "Oh, are we going to trade Kirk Cousins? Are we going to get rid of him or whatever?" Our GM has already said he's going to be a Redskin. We will franchise tag him again if we need to. There's no because this is all coming down to money. But the thing to me is we cannot afford it. It's better for us. It's like people are saying, "Oh, can we afford to pay Kirk Cousins?" But to me, it's completely the opposite. Can we afford to lose Kirk Cousins? And I don't think we can lose Kirk Cousins at all. It's just kind of like I said. I feel with all this hesitation and everything that's going on that we somewhat don't deserve Kirk Cousins.
I'm gonna just put in this live stream real
quick. Another thing that I was just talking about is. I was just talking about RG3.
Yeah.
Another thing that some fans don't think about is it's not that far from, back in history where we were watching RG3 play. I remember I went to an Eagles game. RG3 gets hit. He goes down to the ground, and he's on the ground for what seems like an eternity. And we're all sitting there asking ourselves, is this it? Is this the last time we're going to see RG3? That's not the problem with Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins takes a shot. He gets right back up, goes right back to the drawing board. He doesn't complain. This is a guy who throws a 60-yard touchdown pass that Deshaun Jackson runs all the way goddamn down the field, says, celebrate as a team. This was all you, individual effort on you, Deshaun. You did this. And this guy is a model citizen. He's a role model to kids and everyone out there. And I just don't understand how we are being so we already bet and we lost the bet. I don't see why we should go and bet again and have Kirk Cousins take us to the playoffs next year or play just as good as he did this year. And then what are we going to do? Pay out even more money? Or it's just absurd. We have to pay him. We have to pay him.
I agree. I think that the biggest thing is we got to make sure that we made a mistake last year, first and foremost. Last year we should have signed him. And I know that the argument last year was, okay, is he a one-year wonder? Is he Nick Foles? Is he just having a breakout year one time? And is he going to go back to being the turnover machine that, couldn't find ways to close out games? We saw him do it again. And so I think if anything, that should have been enough proof right there that, look, we got the guy that we need to help us win. We didn't go 8-7-1 because Kirk Cousins wasn't good enough last year. We went 8-7-1 because we still didn't have a run game consistently, and we had a horrible defense. So if you're a Redskins fan and you don't think that Kirk Cousins is the guy, okay, fine. Everyone has their opinion. What's your solution? What's the alternative? And I had this whole grandioso introduction from my man BFG and his varying opinion on Kirk Cousins, and then he wasn't here to talk about it. So let's try this again. Let me set the table. All of us, for the most part, agree that Redskins Review, myself, a lot of Redskins fans out there believe that Kirk Cousins is in fact the guy, and we need to re-sign him and keep him on board and move forward with what we've been doing. And my man BFG is currently in the process of doing a series chronicling why we should not re-sign Kirk Cousins and why we should move on from him and get the future of this franchise started in a different direction. So BFG, please explain to us why Kirk Cousins is somewhat of a hindrance to this franchise and not a help, and talk about why the Redskins need to move on from him, in your opinion.
Well, to set the stage on this, I think that it's to be more clear on my opinion on not necessarily keeping Kirk. You're going to have to watch the videos that I had posted. It's a 2-part series. I ended up posting the second video to that series a couple days ago, and I go into great lengths in depth as to why I don't necessarily think it's a good idea to keep Kirk in Washington. And one of them, to expound on some of the highlights, I think the time for keeping Kirk has passed. I don't think that that us franchise tagging him this last season, we set the floor on his negotiating price, which is basically $24 million. And right now, it's not the fact. I think one of the biggest misconceptions about people have on my opinion on Kirk Cousins, I am not saying Kirk Cousins sucks. I am not saying that Kirk Cousins can't get us to a playoff. I am not saying that he can't do his job behind center. He can do his job. He can pass the ball. He can get that ball downfield and actually move the chains really, really well. And I don't think I've really seen anything like that since the really, really good days of a Kirk, of a Brunell. So, that the interesting thing is when we're taking a look at that and having to negotiate his price, there are several teams out there that are paying a lot of money for their quarterback but aren't making the playoffs. And I expound on that on my video where I talk about, the top 4 to top 5 quarterbacks that are out there. There's only one of these quarterbacks that made the playoffs, and that was Aaron Rodgers. Other than that, you got Andrew Luck, you got Drew Brees, you got Joe Flacco, all these individuals that are taking more than 10% of their cap, and they're not going anywhere because they're paying a lot of this money to some of these high-priced players. And if you strap yourself to a quarterback position, great, you're awesome at the quarterback position, but you need talent around him as well. And you can't backfill that talent when you're missing in the draft and you're missing on these free agent signings, which are two things we do very, very well in Washington. We don't develop our players, and we don't draft very well. So I want to be able to have more room in the cap to build up a defense. That's what I want to do, because in my opinion, to win Super Bowls, you need a top-flight defense. And to get a top-flight defense, I just don't think we're ready for a guy like Kirk Cousins yet. If we move, forward into the future another, 3 or 4 years, and we've got that top-flight defense and a Kirk Cousins comes along, then by all means, I got no problem giving him his money. But right now, I think that it made more sense to me before the 2016 season to sign Kirk Cousins to a $19, $20 million deal. But now we're looking at 24. I mean, Kirk's not going to give us a discount in Washington as far as his money is concerned. He's been very, very adamant about saying he wants to play for a team that wants him. And the only way he's going to get compensation for that is through, financial means, especially in Washington, because we haven't given this kid a whole lot of love. So, in my opinion, would I want to sacrifice that cap hit for a Kirk Cousins? Not necessarily. Not for $24 million. That's a lot of money, and that's not even guaranteed money. So, what kind of a cap hit are we looking at? I don't want to be the Baltimore Ravens, where I'm giving a guy a whole truck ton of money who can throw the football downfield and complete a few passes and solidify his career for the next 5 or 6 years. I want to get to the playoffs on a consistent basis, and it's more than just it's more than just a quarterback position that does that. So again, there's a whole lot of other points that I bring up, but I expound a lot on that on the 2 videos that I had posted. Go back and watch those if you want. But I felt that a lot of people feel that Kirk Cousins can get us to a playoff. He absolutely can. I am not questioning that at all. I feel that he can. There's a lot of people think that that he is a great quarterback and the quarterback for the future. I am not saying that he's not. I'm saying that he has the potential to be that guy, and he's very much on his way with the records that he's breaking, the statistics that he has come out with. What I am saying is I'm taking a look at it from a cap value. I'm taking a look at it from how much it's going to cost us. And we've painted ourselves into this corner. This isn't Kirk. The only thing Kirk has done is his job. He went out there, threw passes down the field. He was reading defenses. He's communicating with his team. He's a great team, a team-oriented individual. He thinks about other individuals, just like Redskins Review said. He's got all these, admirable qualities that you want in a quarterback. But we haven't necessarily treated him with the greatest respect when it comes to signing him to a long-term deal. We keep slapping franchise tags on him saying, hey, you got to prove it. Well, okay, you proved it. Okay, but we want you to prove it again. Okay, well, you proved that too. We're going to want you to prove it again. How many more times are we going to go to the well with this guy? I mean, and all we're doing by signing him to franchise tags is we're telling his agent, hey, this is where the baseline is at. It was at 19, 18. You came to us with 12. We're not taking 12. We'll take the 24 when you franchise me again. So we kind of backed ourselves into a corner. And that's the one thing that I think that sucks is I don't think anybody in this franchise really believed in Kirk until it was too late. So am I willing to pay that kind of cap money for Kirk Cousins? No, because I want to rebuild this team, man. I want to rebuild this defense, and people think we have an infinite amount of cash, and the NFL is not going to come down on us if we go over the cap. We got a cap, man. We can only spend so much, and we need all the help we can get, and we're not going to hit on all our draft picks. I would love to. God, I would love to. But I can't recall in the last 20 years where we've done that. Maybe we'll hit on one or two guys. But what I mean by hitting, I'm talking about signing deals after the rookie contract. That is a successful draft pick. We don't do that in Washington. Very rarely do we do that. I want to see us do well in the draft. I want us to see us sign those guys to extended deals after their rookie deal is up. I want to see us develop players. Two things we suck. And I want to see us be able to have a guy like Kirk Cousins where we can build around him, and then we make that march on the Super Bowl. You could take your playoffs. Playoffs are great. I like watching football on Sunday in January too. I want a Super Bowl, ladies and gentlemen. I want to go to the Super Bowl. So this is, in my opinion, how we get there. We don't spend a whole lot of money in positions that, that don't necessarily feasibly make a whole lot of sense right now. I'd love to keep Kirk, but if it was my decision at 24 mil, I'd let him walk.
I mean, you made some valid points there. The biggest thing is we got enough money to sign. We got the third most cap rollover of any team in the league this offseason. So we got money to spend. Kirk, you could set the deal up to where Kirk is only going to eat up 12 or 13% of the cap, which is what the going rate is for an NFL quarterback that's of any merit. And I say this all the time. If you don't have a quarterback, you don't have a chance in this league. We get rid of Kirk Cousins, we won't have a shot. You can put Colt McCoy in if you like. Go ahead, knock yourself out. You're automatically a 6-7 win team max with Colt McCoy in there, especially if the defense is as bad as it has been, if the running game is as bad as it's been. There's no way Colt McCoy is going to be successful without having the aid of any of those things, which Kirk has given us a shot despite not having a run game, despite not having a defense. So I think you keep going in this direction. I agree. We missed our golden opportunity to sign this guy and have almost like a coupon, some savings. We missed that opportunity by not signing him to a long-term deal last year. But from the other end of the spectrum, you get it. Okay, you want to see it again. Well, he showed you again. So I think now it's time to ante up. And Scott McCloughan promised Kirk and his wife last offseason that if Kirk went out and played and performed, he was going to take care of them. Okay, Kirk held up his end of the bargain. Now Scott McCloughan and the Redskins need to hold up their end of the bargain. I need to see the Redskins do what they said they were going to do, which is give this man the money that he deserves. Now, look, Kirk's not taking a hometown discount like you said. He's already said, look, it wouldn't be fair to other quarterbacks around the league if I took less. So he's looking at it from an NFLPA standpoint, which is fine by me. I'm all about every single player in the league getting as much money as they can possibly get. It's a physical sport. It's NFL stands for not for long. Get your money while it's there to be got. That being said, you'd like to see the Redskins find a way to get him to sign a deal that's going to allow them to continue to make the moves that they need to make to improve this roster, but also satisfy Kirk and his agent. I don't see that happening. One of these sides is going to win or one of these sides is going to lose. I think the Redskins missed their opportunity to win. Now they just got to bite the bullet and say, all right, you win. Go ahead. Sign Kirk Cousins to that long-term deal, because if you don't, even if you build up the defense, we're not going to have a quarterback that's going to be able to take us where we want to go. And you're going to find yourself – and this is the thing that's scary, is because we're not terrible. And if we get rid of Kirk Cousins, maybe we will be. But I think Colt McCoy won't be terrible enough to the point where we won't get a top 5 or 6 pick. We'll be picking somewhere around 9 or 13 or somewhere in there, where you're not going to get the number 1 overall quarterback in the draft, or the number 2 quarterback for that matter, without trading. And we went down that road before. You don't want to go down that road again. I think Kirk Cousins is the guy for the job. He's proven that he can get the job done. I think we need to surround him with more talent. What he has proven thus far is that, no, he's not a guy like an Aaron Rodgers, like a Ben Roethlisberger, like a Tom Brady that can put a team on his back and win you a game by himself. All right, he needs help. He needs guys to come in and perform at a high level around him. Running back position, the offensive line has to be good, which we have a young, really good offensive line. You need the receivers to be good. You need the tight ends to be good. You need the defense to be good. You need the running game to be good. He needs help around him, which you could say for probably 90 to 95% of the league is in that same boat, that you got to have all of those pieces around them performing effectively at a high enough level that the quarterback can succeed. So I think Kirk Cousins is the guy for the job, but we'll see what the Redskins decide to do. I'll tell you one thing. Kirk, and BFG alluded to this, Kirk feels the disrespect. If you think he hasn't felt the disrespect, then you're not paying attention. That little bit of an outburst that he had against after the Green Bay game, where he goes up to Scott McCloughan and says, "How you like me now?"
Yeah.
That's pure emotion, but that's pure, you didn't believe in me. And those leaks that came out at the beginning of the season about Kirk Cousins potentially not being the guy, that was from you. And I know it was from you. And how you like me now? So
there was a lot behind that.
There's a lot behind that. There was a ton behind that little exchange there. And so don't think for one second Kirk Cousins doesn't know who was in his corner this entire time. And don't think he's not going to take that into consideration when he starts sitting down at that negotiating table either. So let's jump to some more of these comments and see what you guys are saying out there. Sergio Pinto Tapia says, "Hey, Lou, I don't know what it is, but something in my gut is telling me we aren't going to sign Swaggy back. I don't know what it is. Something is telling me we need him back." Let's throw a couple of names out there. I want to throw this out to the panel a little bit and see what you guys think. There are a couple of names out there, and my man Tony has joined us on the live stream, and we'll get to him in a second because he actually did a video that's on my Facebook page, if you wanted to check it out, where he kind of goes through the roster position by position and talks about the guys that are free agents that need to be back and guys that he doesn't think is going to return next season. And I thought he was pretty much spot on. There were a couple of guys that I didn't know necessarily if they're going to be back or not that he mentioned, but for the most part, we were pretty much in sync with each other in terms of who needed to be back and who probably wasn't going to be back. I'm going to throw out a couple of names. I want you guys to give me a brief answer. You don't have to expound or elaborate on what you feel these guys are going to do, if they're going to be back or not. But I want you guys to give me your initial thoughts on this guy potentially coming back, not coming back, and do the Redskins need this guy back? We'll start with Deshaun Jackson. I'll start with Redskins Review. Back, not back, do the Redskins need him back?
I think we're going to try to keep this offense together as much as we just had it last year. I think we're going to try, with already losing Sean McVay, I think we're going to not try to mess stuff up that much. So I think they're going to do whatever they can to bring him back. Do I think he comes back? I'm kind of 50-50. No one really knows yet, but I would love to have him back, and I think the Redskins want him to come back just to keep our offense the same as it was last year.
BFG, Deshaun Jackson, back, not back, and do the Redskins need him back?
Honestly, I would not be surprised if he was not back. Would I take him back? I think I would have to negotiate a cap-friendly deal with him, but I'm not liking the fact that he's hit the 30 mark. And I don't know if anybody else has noticed this, but he has lost a step or two. He's still really, really fast. He can still burn those safeties deep. But Kirk Cousins is starting to overthrow this kid. And it happened several times this last year. And it's not a timing thing because it used to be where you could never overthrow, a Deshaun Jackson. And that's happened several times last year. I mean, how many touchdowns did we leave on the field because we overthrew this guy? And, I think he still definitely has talent, but you definitely don't want to keep somebody longer, than what their talent is able to prove on the football field. And besides that, honestly, if you want to go back to Philly, good riddance. Go to Philly. I don't need you. We want football players who want to be in Washington. And you've already, before, 2 weeks left in the season, talking about you'd like to go back to Philly and play, and that there's been talks. Fine, go. See you. We'll see you later. Have fun in Philly.
Hey, Tones, you there? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hold on. Let me see if I can get this. Can you hear me, Tones?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me though?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you. We can hear you now, man.
Right, so this is my opinion with Deshaun Jackson. Do I want him back? Yes, the boy's a burner. The boy can scorch all you say, like BF just say, he can scorch anybody in the league. Still, he lost a step or two. Still scorch everybody in their damn mother. Don't get me wrong. But do I need him back? Hell no. I still got Josh Dawson. Still got Jameson Crowder. Still got Pierre Garçon. I know we're going to probably resign Pierre Garçon. I still have enough weapons. I'm going to probably get Vernon Davis back. Still got Jay Reed. Still got Chris Thompson. I got all these weapons to throw the ball to. I don't need Deshaun Jackson back. No. Do I want him back? Hell yeah. But you see, you want to go out to Philly? Go back to Philly. I don't give a fuck. No. Scram. I don't care. Go.
Hey.
Go back and be with your old mates, bro. It's all good. Like, you are a rental. It's all good, bro. Go back.
Yeah.
Not tripping. Still got plenty of weapons. Still like Philip next year. I don't care.
I feel the same way. I feel like if he wants to go back to Philly, by all means, knock yourself out. Jay Gruden said something that stuck with me in his exit press conference, which was essentially, we want leaders on this team. We want guys that we can, can count on, essentially. And I think that was a shot at Deshaun Jackson, to be honest with you. When we asked about the receivers coming back, he basically said, we want guys that want to be here and guys that are leaders. I think that was a shot at Deshaun Jackson. And for that reason right there alone, I just don't see him coming back. Would I have loved to have had him back? Hell yeah, just like my man Tone said. Yeah, you would love to have Deshaun back. But the bottom line is, I mean, we got plenty of weapons. Like he listed the guys. I don't need to go through it. He listed the guys. We got plenty of weapons, man. I don't think we have to have him back. So we'll keep going. All right. Back.
Well, one of the things I want to mention here real quick, Louie.
Go ahead.
If we do end up signing Deshaun, there's one little caveat to this whole situation with Deshaun Jackson and the argument for keeping him, not keeping him. And one of the things that I think that's going to very heavily influence whether we keep Deshaun Jackson and try to negotiate a deal to keep him in Washington is going to be the Josh Doctson injury. Yeah. And how far along is this kid in his injury? Because that's a very severe injury that he's taken, even though they've saying that there's no tear and that there's no sign of severe damage. It's taken this kid a long time to come back. He's had several months to at least be able to put some weight on it and put some significant workouts behind it. But we haven't necessarily seen that. And what I believe in a press conference here, Jay Gruden said, well, we're going to see in a couple of months as far as where he's at. And it's obvious that our head coach is a little frustrated by this injury that he has sustained. But if Josh Doctson, who I believe we drafted for this very occasion when we were looking at possibly signing back two massive receivers on our football team and having a rookie replace that position, if he can't come back, well, then it may force the issue for us trying to negotiate and keeping Deshaun Jackson here.
I think that's why they drafted him, was because they knew they were going to have to replace either him or Pierre or both. And I think they expect a lot out of him. And I've heard nothing but good reports about him rehabbing and getting back on the field. So we'll see what happens with Josh Doctson in the upcoming season. Like you said, the way that they perceive his recovery to be going is going to probably weigh heavily into whether he is back or not. But I just don't see D-Jax coming back next season. Not back, and do you think he should be back? I'm going to start with my man Tones on this one. We're going to go to the linebacker position. Will Compton, back, not back, should he be back?
I want him back. He should be back. And I think he will be back. he's not the most athletic football player. Don't get me wrong. The boy is slow as a damn snail. Let me get out the way, but bro, he knows offense. He's not a read offense. It's not a counter him. And that intellect is so big on the field for us. He sets our guys up. You know, we got the most athletic defense in the world. We have athletic guys around Will Compton. He doesn't have to be but the slow snail he is and make this defense effective. So I think he's an intricate part of our defense, and I don't want him to walk away. He's a team captain for a reason. He's a leader. So he's cerebral. He knows his offense is left and right. He knows formations and tendencies of what offense like to do. Like, he's around him enough to take advantage of his smarts. So I think we should keep Will Compton, man.
I agree with you again. I do. So we'll go to BFG. Will Compton, back, not back? Should he be back?
I think that anybody who has been a subscriber of my channel knows pretty much how I feel about Will Compton. I have been picking on Will Compton for the better part of, pretty much the entire 2016 season. I will admit that the individual is a leader in the locker room. He's a leader on the football team. He's named team captain. He's wearing that green tab in the back of his helmet for a reason, because he's earned it. He was an individual, I believe, he's a practice squad guy at one point, wasn't he?
Yep.
Yeah.
And then he got bumped up to that middle linebacker position, and things were kind of rolling from there. But part of my problem with him is I don't think he plays that linebacker position well. I just don't think he has the speed or the talent to get to the position where he needs. A big part of that inside linebacker position is being where you got to be at the right time. And I don't like the way he reads I don't like the way he reads offenses. There's things that you need to do and to be able to react to. If you want to just watch several of these other teams that have really, really good inside linebackers and watch what they do within the first 2 seconds, within the first step that quarterback makes in his drop back, watch what those linebackers do. And Will Compton's not one of them. And that's one of the problems I have with him is that when it comes to the point of impact, when it comes to coming up the line of scrimmage and making contact with anybody, he's not there. By the time he makes contact, a lot of times with these running backs, it's already after they've made a 2 to 3 yard gain. You're already way behind the 8 ball on that, and that's not what I want from middle linebacker. He's a great guy. I love him to pieces, but I want a bulldog in there at middle linebacker. I've been spoiled with London Fletcher. That's the problem. I've watched London Fletcher as an old man play this position at a very, very high level, and now I'm stuck with Compton. And even though I like the guy and I think he's got a heart of gold, I need somebody in that's going to be able to do his job. And if we got to replace him, I would probably keep him again with another cap-friendly deal, but I would not be signing him to some, to any outrageous deal, because I just don't necessarily. I think he's a good backup option for us, but as far as starting inside linebacker, man, there's way better that's out there. I want to see us have some options. I just don't think it's there.
Redskins Review, talk to me. Will Compton, keep, let go, should he be around?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't think Will Compton's going to be able to command much money from us. But something I've heard you say multiple times, we need guys, and he is a guy. He's not the guy, but he's a guy, and we need those guys on our team. If we do find the guy and he goes down, we have Will Compton. And if Will Compton can take a back seat to the guy, whoever that might be, maybe we'll draft the guy or we'll find him in free agency or whatever. If he can take a step back and, continue to learn, obviously, like you said, he was a practice squad player and, he's humble to be here now. But he's a dog, man. He's ready to fight. And we need people like that with that mentality on this team. But he's obviously, we're not looking for, no one here is sitting here saying he should, be our starter. But if we don't have any other options, obviously we need him back.
This is my thought on Will Compton, and we'll move on to the next guy on the list. I think Will Compton is good as an inside linebacker. He does a really good job of reading what's going on. I recall him sniffing out a screen against the Ravens. We got the defense in the right position to blow the thing up and push the Ravens out of field goal range in a game that we didn't win by very many points. He's very cerebral, like my man Tone said earlier. The thing is, he lacks athleticism, like Tone said, like BFG said. And the biggest thing is you got to put someone with athleticism next to him. it will highlight his strengths, which is getting everybody lined up and allowing other guys to run to the ball, make plays. He'll do his job. You just need someone, a baller next to him. You need a guy that can go out and get it done next to him, which is what I've been screaming for years. We need more team speed defensively. We don't have enough of it. And a guy like Will Compton is the poster child for the lack of team speed that we have defensively. So you just want to see us upgrade the linebacker position. But I don't think he's necessarily a part of the problem as much as a guy that could be a part of the solution if we hold on to him. And I think Redskins Review said that he's not going to command a lot of interest on the free agent market. I don't think anyone's going to be beating our door down to take Will Compton away from us. And if I'm not mistaken, he's restricted anyway. So worst case scenario, I see him coming back, and I want him back. I don't think that he's going to be that expensive, and I think he's a guy that you want on your roster. All right, I'm going to throw a couple of names out there, and you can take either one or both quickly. We don't have to spend a lot of time on these guys. Pierre Garçon, Chris Baker, keep, not keep, should they be back? We'll start with Redskins Review on this one. Chris Baker, Pierre Garçon, go.
Yeah, they both need to be back. Did you say I have to choose one or the other? Or
No. I said
okay.
You can talk about both of those guys quickly.
Yeah, I think the general consensus here is I would rather have Pierre Garçon back than Deshaun Jackson. The guy, he's like a running back when he gets the ball, and he gets the yards after the catch. He'll run people over. He'll block in the running game, something that Deshaun Jackson just doesn't necessarily even have the physical ability to do. And he loves the Redskins. He loves to play physical. I think, I've heard you say, he ages well. And Chris Baker I think we need to keep him even more than Pierre Garçon, because who else do we have? We don't have anybody else. I mean, he's if there's one person I'm pretty sure is going to be back, it's got to be Chris Baker. Also because he also loves being a Redskin. You can tell he loves just Redskins fans. You can tell he loves to talk smack if he can or whatever. He likes being competitive, and even though he doesn't have the talent around him, he is still trying to be the best he can be. So both of them need to be back.
Tones, what do you think? Pierre Garçon, Chris Baker, back, not back? Should they be back?
Well, should they be back? That's not even a question. What? Of course. Oh, I wish I could say. I think they are, though. I think Pierre wants to be here. I think Chris wants to be here. They're both very intricate parts of our football team. They bring the Redskins spirit. They are the spirit of this football team. Right? They leave. What is the Washington Redskins? What are we? They define our spirit of our team. Like, can't let them boys walk away. If Sky not let these boys walk away, he's smoking crack. No way. Like, no. So yeah, they should definitely be back. Will they be back? I think they will be, because of the morale they bring to the team and what they mean. Like, Pierre Garçon, our best receiver. I agree with Redskins Review. He's the best receiver on our football team. He's the most tenacious receiver on our football team. He brings that it factor that we need in our receiving corps. He makes Ryan Grant block. He makes all these boys block and do the dirty work. If it wasn't for him, no one would be blocking and doing that dirty work that they do. And as for Chris Baker, he's an impact defensive player. We don't have many. We got him and Josh Norman. That's it. So what choice do you have to keep Chris Baker? That's how I look at it.
All right, BFG. You know the names. Talk to us.
Well, to be as the typical contrarian that I am, unfortunately, I'm going to agree with everything that was just said by everybody on the panel and yourself. I think these are both individuals that we have to have back. I would love to have both of them back. They embody everything that you want in a football player out there representing your football team. Chris Baker has impressed me a lot, being one of those guys that's come up through the ranks. I watch how he maintains gap security between on both sides of him on A-gap, and I've been very pleased with his ability to even get to the quarterback. So that's definitely somebody. He's somebody that the people on the defensive side of the football listen to in the locker room, and he wants to be a Redskin. Same thing with Pierre Garçon. I kind of liken him a little bit to Santana Moss, where he played with a team prior, but ended up getting landing in Washington, and now this guy loves to be here, and he's a guy that does so many things off camera when he's not got the football in his hands, that he's a guy that you want to have here on your football team. And on third down, man, if you don't have Jordan Reed, who is Kirk Cousins going to? he's going to the man with the hands, and that's the guy that we're talking about. We definitely need to bring both of these individuals back. I think they're an intricate part of us being successful in the future.
You remember the first Giants game where Chris Baker smashed Eli Manning? That I'm pretty sure everyone else hit on it. That changed the game after. And another thing is, I gotta run real quick. I gotta go pick up my wife. It should take 10 minutes or so. I'm gonna jump out of here. If you guys are still alive, I'll jump right back in when I get back, man. If not, thanks for having me. I'll see you guys next time.
Hey, no doubt, man. Thanks for joining us.
Yep. See ya.
Hey, that was a big play in that game versus the Giants. I fully expect Pierre Garçon to be back. I think the Redskins want him back. I saw him on television last week or so talking about how he wants to be back. He's waiting for a phone call, he said. I think that the biggest issue with Chris Baker coming back is that I think he's looking for big-time money. And I don't know if the Redskins are going to give it to him. I want him back. I think, like my man Tone said, we don't have a lot of talent, man, on defense. It's not much there. So if you take him out of the mix, what do we really have defensively, especially on that defensive line? We need to revamp the whole D line. And so if you get rid of him, there's really nothing there left but Ricky John Francois. And so I feel like we gotta have him back. But I don't know if he's going to be back. That's the biggest thing we're going to see. It's amazing to see a guy that, and this is what BFG kind of spoke to, guys that we develop, guys that we draft, guys that we cultivate, and we don't keep them around when their contract is up. We've seen this so many times in Washington, whether it's Ryan Clark, whether it's Antonio Pierce, and I know I talk about those two in particular all the time, but those two are the poster childs for us not keeping homegrown talent. And so we'll see what happens with Chris Baker. Let's see. Jonathan Lynch says, what are your thoughts on the QB coach being our offensive coordinator this year? And we've pretty much touched on that as far as Matt Cavanaugh becoming the offensive coordinator. He's going to help put together the game plan, but Jay Gruden's going to call the play. So really, to me, the importance of our offensive coordinator, which is why I think they just promoted from within, isn't that significant, because Jay Gruden is going to do what it is he's done so well in this league, which is called plays. So Cavanaugh is just going to continue to work closely with Kirk Cousins and the offense and put together a game plan, and Gruden's going to call the plays on game day. So not really much there. I think we're all comfortable as Redskins fans with the whole setup that they have offensively, losing McVay to the Rams, but defensively, I think that's where we are still a little uncertain as to what we're going to get out of the coaching staff. Tom Moe says, draft strategy. So I want to throw this out to you, BFG. What do you perceive to be our biggest weakness and need as of January 26th, 2017? If I ask you right now, with that first round pick, you could take any player, okay? And you don't have to give me specifics. You may not know who's out in the draft or anything.
Which I don't.
Could take the biggest, baddest player in the draft, at what position do you perceive the Redskins need the most help right now?
To tell you the truth, I think I would probably – I think it would really kind of depend. If we're looking at the biggest, baddest player as far as need goes in the draft, and that's using that template, I would be looking at either pass rusher, because you can't put a premium on pass rushers, either pass rusher or secondary.
Right.
We need to get somebody in that backfield that other teams have to circle on their game plan. We got a lot of needs. We got a ton of needs. But unfortunately, the biggest need is going to be, and honestly, to tell you the truth, if that's at corner, that's fine. I mean, we definitely need a somebody who can cover in the slot, because we really don't quite have that yet. We got a couple individuals in there that have some potential that didn't necessarily shine in 2016. Maybe we need another one of those. But I could tell you right now, if I had my eye on a big, bad pit bull safety, I would take him. I think that obviously the Sean Taylor type draft picks are not out there. Those guys come probably once in a lifetime. But I would take somebody who is really, really good at that safety position with a ton of potential, because we have not emphasized that position in the draft, quite that high since Sean Taylor, to tell you the truth. And I would go for a bulldog safety, somebody with some speed, with some versatility that can make some massive open field tackles, and especially some big time hits that can cover that outside hash mark at any time that he wants to and still be able to step up and stop the run. That's a guy that we need, that we haven't had in a very, very long time. So that's the position I would look at, but also pass rusher. Those probably the two biggest positions I would look at drafting with that first draft selection. Definitely pass rusher and safety or corner.
I would definitely side with you on it needs to be a defensive player. Defensive line, I think for the longest time we haven't had enough of an impact there. So defensive line, pass rusher, like you said, you can't put a premium on that. You can't have enough of them. We don't have enough of them. And so, you keep waiting on Junior Gillette. And at some point, You're just like, okay, enough with that. I don't mind bringing him back on another 1-year deal. He says he doesn't mind coming back on another 1-year deal. But even if he is able to find his way out of training camp, which he hasn't been able to do since we got him, what is he even going to be? What is he even going to do for us? I mean, can he even regain the explosiveness he once had? Don't know if that's even possible at this point. But nonetheless, pass rusher, defensive line, linebacker. Those are my three right now. I think those are the three positions: an athletic linebacker, elite explosive pass rusher, or a defensive lineman, a guy that can win up front, get pressure on the quarterback, stop the run, that type of thing is what we're definitely need right now, and that we're lacking defensively. I think this is a really deep safety draft. So if you don't get a guy in the first round, I'm not going to be too upset about that or distraught that you don't go after anything in the secondary right away. I don't think corner is that big of a need. If we can get Breland to play somewhat consistently, I think last for him, a little bit of a culture shock. He thought he was something that he wasn't. He's not a number one corner in this league. We thought maybe he could be. He wasn't. And that's fine. He can be a really good number two, and he started to play like one towards the end of the season. Fuller can play, and I think he kind of alluded to this without mentioning names, but he's a young guy that I think could potentially play in the slot, and so, he maybe just a little bit more time and development, he can be a much better guy for us. And so I'm not willing to spend anything early on the secondary necessarily. I think in that front seven is where we really need to concentrate, because that's where we're really, really lacking. We don't have any elite players in the front seven, and I think this draft is an opportunity to potentially address that. So that's where I would go. So that would be my draft strategy, is attack the front seven first and then try to look and see if you can upgrade the secondary afterwards. BA says, the point you guys are forgetting is Gruden and Kirk are not Scott's picks. No, they're not, but those are guys that can help him win. And so while Jay Gruden isn't his coach, he didn't handpick him. While Kirk Cousins isn't his quarterback, he didn't handpick him. Those are guys that have been successful in DC. We just had back-to-back winning seasons for the first time since 1991, 92, 92, 93. So it's been rough in DC. So to think that we could just move on from those guys, or they're not the answer, is to me not the answer. So I know they aren't Scott's guys, but in that profession, you're going to have guys, you're going to inherit guys that aren't your guys that you're going to have to work with. And I think those are two guys that he should be really fortunate that they're on his staff. With Gruden, I think that he's still got some growing to do as a head coach, but this is his first job. And we're watching him come of age. There's some things that he needs to be better at, but I think he's a really good motivator. I think he's a really good players coach. These guys can relate to him. He's been a player, even though it wasn't in the NFL. He's been a player, so he can relate to these guys in the struggle. And I think his voice is heard in that locker room, and it's felt. So I like Jay Gruden. I think he's got the potential to really be the guy for us. This is a big year for him because he's only got 2 years left on his deal.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of which, let's segue to that. Let me ask you about your thoughts on Jay Gruden. Do you think he's the guy to lead this team into the future? And if not, do you think the Redskins should have kept Sean McVay and gotten rid of Jay Gruden? What are your thoughts? That's something that we heard a lot of from a lot of Redskins fans.
Well, to give you my honest opinion on it, I think that Sean McVay staying in Washington was I mean, a lot of people didn't necessarily see Sean McVay leaving. I saw Sean McVay leaving. Offensive coordinators that have success being offensive coordinators don't stay offensive coordinators for long. And him being the youngest offensive coordinator, I honestly, I kind of think of North Turner. North Turner, phenomenal offensive coordinator, horrible head coach. He's not a leader of men. And it is a question right now as to whether Sean McVay is a leader of men. You have to be a leader of men. You have to command that respect from people in the locker room. You got to be personable. You can excite, you can recite all the X's and O's you want, and they'll have all the football knowledge that you want. But if you come across as somebody that these guys can't necessarily go out to put it all on the line for you on the football field, then man, you kind of the cards are kind of stacked against you. So honestly, we still have a lot to see as to whether Sean McVay can make that leap to offensive coordinator to head coach. Now, Jay Gruden, on the other hand, the pedigree of Jay Gruden obviously has been solidified somewhat in his older brother and what he's been able to do in the league. And you hope that we were going to get shades of that when he came to become head coach of the Washington Redskins. Obviously, it was a question as to whether he was going to be able to make that leap from his coaching position in Cincinnati to a head coaching position. I think after the 3 years that we've seen from Jay Gruden, personally, I am actually satisfied with his ability as a head coach. There's definitely a lot of room for improvement. He definitely needs clock management skills. He definitely needs communication skills on the sideline, be able to get those play calls into the quarterback a little bit quicker. We've had some play calls that I think that's directly attributed to the head coaching at least the coaching staff, and the buck stops with him. But I think he knows that there's some areas that he can improve on. But to tell you the truth, I mean, I've said this in some videos of mine in the past, that if we do sign Kirk Cousins, then you have to extend Jay Gruden and you have to solidify Scott McGloohan's spot, because if that quarterback is your future, then you have to have the trifecta, man. It's a triangle effect. The owner's going nowhere. So below that, you've got general manager, head coach, and that's what the winning teams do. They solidify that foundation, and that's the foundation is general manager and head coach. So would I have kept Sean McVay? Only if it was promoting from within, and yes, it would have been promoting from within, but I don't think that Jay Gruden has done a whole lot to deserve him getting ousted out the door. That's a Daniel Snyder thing. That is something that has been plaguing this football team for 20 years now. We don't want to do that. The problem with that is if you start engaging again in the coaching carousel, you're only going to have more and more problems. I don't want a brand new offensive regime coming in like every 3 or 4 years, like what we've been doing in the past. I want continuity. And how you develop continuities, you believe in the people that are getting you out on the football field every day. And if they're doing a satisfactory job and a good job and you see room for improvement and it looks like they're going to be able to do it, then, man, you have to sign these people. You have to sign these people because a lot of times that improvement's going to come when they know that they're going to be here for a while and their services are appreciated when you offer them a contract. So, I mean, I think that, honestly, I think Jay Gruden he knows as a coach that he's only got a couple years left. And if we're not going to be giving him a deal, then his back's going to be up against the wall. And I don't want him necessarily getting excited and making, rash judgments on his play calling just to try to keep his job. I want him to have some measure of confidence in keeping his job by already not having to worry about the money side of it. Okay, they extended me. They want me here. They love me here. Now I can concentrate on doing what I have to do. And the same thing with the general manager and the quarterback. So if you're going, in my opinion, I've said this in my video before, that if you sign Kirk Cousins, you got to sign the other two as well. That's just the way it's done.
I agree with you. I think you hit the nail right on the head. If you're going to keep Kirk Cousins, him and Jay Gruden are a package deal. Scott McLaurin isn't going anywhere right now. In my mind, Bruce Allen's going to be around. So if you're going to keep one, you need to keep the other. And so I think that's probably the biggest thing of the offseason is getting Kirk Cousins extended. If you're going to extend him, then I think the other domino would then fall and Jay Gruden would be extended as well. And I think that's what we need to do. I'm in the same boat as you. Continuity is the name of the game right now with the Redskins, and we're going in a really good direction right now, especially on the offensive side of the football. And you would like to see that direction continued. And so those guys being back would be huge if you're going to do that. Let's see. J Move says, any free agents we should target? I think there are a couple out there that warrant a little bit of attention. Calais Campbell is a free agent with the Arizona Cardinals. We need help on the defensive line. Obviously, Eric Berry is a free agent in Kansas City. I don't see the Chiefs allowing that guy to go anywhere. If they can't reach a long-term deal like they did last year, I think they will franchise him yet again. There are a couple of defensive players out there that bear mentioning, but those are the two that stand out to me as guys that you would look at and say, hey, if we could get our hands on one of those guys, that'd be great. But you don't really know. Free agency, it's hit or miss. Hard to say what the Redskins will do or won't do coming up in free agency. See what else we have in terms of comments. Corey Fitterman says, do y'all think we should bring back Junior Gillette? I pretty much said that I'm open to it. You know, if he's willing to sign a 1-year deal, he said he's willing to. I don't see the harm in bringing him back once more and seeing if he can stay healthy this time and what he could bring to the table. So I don't see any harm in bringing him back once more. But again, can we rely on him? We've seen in the last 2 years that the answer to that is no.
I'm back, gentlemen.
Hey, glad to have you back. See what else we have. Corey Fitterman says, Tom Sula was the defensive line coach for the 49ers when Minuski was the defensive coordinator for the 49ers and Scott was the GM, and they had the 4th-ranked defense. That's when they were probably at their peak. So we've seen these guys perform at a really high level together, but that was with a very talented 49ers defense.
Patrick Willis, right?
Yep.
Same time.
Navarro Bowman, Justin Smith, Ray McDonald was playing at a high level. The list goes on and on. Nate Clemens, all those guys. That was a really good defense. That's not what we have here. Ahmad Brooks.
Now, what was Scott McLuhan's official title at that particular time? Was it head of player scouting? Was that what he was doing?
Yeah, something along that lines.
Talent,
player personnel or something to that effect.
Okay, because he was the one that ended up drafting a lot of the talent that San Francisco had the years that he was there. And one of the good things that I enjoy now that's going to benefit us tremendously, I hope, is the fact that, you know, Scott McLuhan is in a general manager's chair, which is, you know, obviously provides you a lot more options when it comes to putting together a draft board, taking a look at free agents. You know, the buck pretty much stops with you. And if you've already worked with these individuals in the past, and had it be successful, then right now that's going to benefit us. And that's one thing that I'm going to look forward to, is seeing exactly how that works for us.
We got another comment. Aubrey44 says, can you speak to the importance of getting our center Lichtensteiger the hell off our team? LOL. That is a BFG special there. I was just going to turn that whole comment over to you and just move the hell out of the way. He's went on at least 5 to 7 center Corey Lichtensteiger / whomever else has been playing center rants over the last year and a half. So the floor is yours, man.
You know, I hate saying those things because, you know, I want to see people flourish and, you know, proliferate in the NFL as long as they possibly can. And Corey Lichtensteiger was a guy that came from the Mike, Shanahan's own stretch run scheme, and he was great in that scheme. And he wasn't playing center necessarily in that scheme. He got moved to center because of injuries that happened on the football team, and he was able to sustain his own at that center position. Unfortunately, I still don't think he's a center. One of the things that makes him a good center is his veteran leadership, his experience, his ability to communicate. Those are all good qualities, but they don't help you when you're getting pancaked, through A gap. And how many times did teams show us double A gap pressure with the blitzing linebackers this year? I mean, I don't think there was a defensive series for the opposition where they didn't at least have double A gap pressure on us. And if you can't sustain double A gap pressure as a center, hey, what good are you at that point? So, and there are even times when I was seeing, just nose tackles, pancaking this guy. And I honestly think, and I've mentioned this in a video before, that, if we're having issues at left guard, I would have been much more happy with replacing left guard and moving him over to that position and going with a true blue center. I don't know if necessarily getting a rookie in that position is something that I would want to do, but I would definitely be looking hard and long at the free agency list. I would have done that last year, to tell you the truth. But I would have liked to have preferred to have seen that. But I don't have a whole lot of confidence in moving forward in the 2017 season and beyond in knowing that Corey Lichtensteiger is behind center. I know he can get the football out there. I know he can call out defenses. But, man, when these defenses send the heat towards Kirk Cousins up the middle, that's one place you don't want Kirk to necessarily worry about, is that pressure up the middle. And you don't want to necessarily change your entire offensive scheme and put a running back on that situation, because that takes a person out of that receiver spot in order to help out somebody that can't do their job. So between center and left guard, man, we need help in those two areas. And I would like to see us address that issue. It was something we should have addressed last year, but Corey Lichtensteiger, love him to pieces, but man, I don't know if I can handle another season with him as center, to tell you the truth.
You got anything to add on that Redskins review?
No, I think he's just also somewhat undersized, man. I mean, it may be that he's, getting, like he said, doubled, but he just seems somewhat to be undersized, and he's getting, I don't know how old he is, but it just, from watching him, he just seems like he's getting, he's not getting any stronger. He's not getting any, younger. So our offensive line, left guard and center, are obviously what we're going to be trying to bulk up, and we need more talent. And I liked Laval when we first got him. He would swing out on the left side, and man, he was running people over. And then he got that injury, and after that, then it was just, even now he's not as consistent, and that's it, left guard and center, man. But we got to move on. We got to figure something out.
We got a couple more comments we'll get to. BA says, impossible to make the switch from a 3-4 to a 4-3. We don't have a strong side linebacker. We don't have a weak side linebacker. So he says it doesn't matter. And he's probably right about that. We don't have a strong side right now. If you look at our roster, the way it's set up, and you could argue we might be able to have a weak side, but I wouldn't be comfortable putting probably the best weak side linebacker we have on our roster is a guy that's not even starting for us right now. So I don't know if we have either of those guys on the roster. So yeah, you probably could say that, but it probably wouldn't be that hard to go out in free agency in the draft and get one of each of those. So Corey Fitterman says, I remember Redskins Review said a while back that if we had an average defense, we would be in the Super Bowl with our offense. Do y'all agree? I don't know about you guys, and I guess I can throw that question to you guys quickly. I don't think we would have been in the Super Bowl with an average defense, just because there were still some deficiencies with our team offensively. We struggled in the red zone this year, and we struggled kicking field goals. Even though I love Dustin Hopkins, he did struggle kicking field goals this year. We struggled running the football consistently. So these were all things that I think were going to eventually – you saw it happen to the Steelers last week. You can't kick field goals and expect to beat good teams in this league. You got to score touchdowns. And we saw in the NFC this year, if you're gonna win, I mean, just look at all the games. The Falcons destroyed the Seahawks because they scored touchdowns. Mm-hmm. The Packers and the Cowboys had an epic shootout. They scored touchdowns. You look at the NFC Championship game, the Packers tried to kick field goals early in that game, and the Falcons ran away with that game. You got to score touchdowns. We didn't do it at a high enough rate this season to me to be in a position to even be using the term Super Bowl and the Redskins in the same sentence. I'll pose that question to you guys. We'll start with Redskins Review on this one. This is basically from your comment, a comment that Corey Fitterman said that you made earlier. Do you think the Redskins would have been a Super Bowl contender had the defense just been average this season?
I think so, man. I mean, it's any given Sunday. Look, the Falcons is almost a perfect example. The Falcons defense is not that great. Yes, they get turnovers, but isn't that how our defense looked last year? And I wouldn't say our defense was that good last year. That they're all offense. They're score points. And that's what our GM is trying to make our team into. That's why we drafted Josh Doxson as #1, because our GM came out and said, this isn't the same league that we grew up watching. This league is now about scoring points and making people catch up. And if we had a decent defense to just get Kirk the ball back, which, yes, I'll be the first to admit, our defense did give Kirk the ball back sometimes this year, and he didn't capitalize on it. But if we were giving him the ball back and not letting people score touchdowns, but holding them to field goals all year, I mean, man, we had 8 wins this year, but how many wins do you think we would have had if we would have just had a decent defense? We can obviously, even with the defense that we had right now, we could sit here and say 2, 3, 4 maybe games we could have won or lost by a field goal. If we just had an average defense, not the 30th out of 32 teams, I think we would have been at least a contender.
Yeah. BFG, what are your thoughts on if the defense was just average this season, what would the Redskins have been able to accomplish?
I think it's an interesting question. I actually remember Redskins Review's video where he had mentioned that, and I think it was a great job on his part, because that was something that was being circulated throughout the media, talking about if we did have an average defense, then we could probably go to the Super Bowl. The thing is that if I'm taking the defense completely out of the scenario here, and then just focusing on the offense, I don't necessarily know if we would have gone to the Super Bowl. Anything's possible, but there were definitely a lot of things that we needed to work on offensively to be able to make that argument, things that keep you out of a Super Bowl. Again, some of the issues on the sideline with being able to get plays out on time and stuff like that, the misappropriation of timeouts, those are all indications that you need more experience on the coaching staff. Our red zone offense sucks. Sucks.
Yep.
How are we going to go to the Super Bowl with a red zone offense like ours? What did we place last year in the red zone? Were we 40th in the league? And there's not even 40 teams in the league. We were that horrible. We needed a hell of a lot more help in the red zone. It was just unbearable. I don't know about you guys, but it was literally like root canal surgery to watch our red zone offense operate this 2016 season. Definitely needed some improvements there. If you can't capitalize in the red zone, you don't go to a Super Bowl. Also, the field goal issues, like you had mentioned, Louis, that was definitely something that needed to be improved upon. You needed to be able to capitalize on that opportunity every single chance that you get to be able to go to a Super Bowl. Also, this is probably, splitting hairs here or being nitpicky, but the coin toss situation, I know this drives you absolutely nuts, because you've mentioned it before in your videos. But if you win the coin toss, when do you elect to receive? Do you elect to receive in the first quarter or the third quarter? Because we pulled that last season when we won the coin toss, and Jay Gruden's like, no, we're going to receive because we want to get ahead in points. Are you kidding me? Nobody does that, man. You receive in the second half of the football game. That's what everybody else does. That's when you want to score your touchdowns. The heck with the beginning
of the defense that causes things.
You score all these points at the beginning of the game, and then you allow the defense to go in at halftime and adjust to whatever it is that you've done. No, you want to score a lot of these points and get the ball first possession in the second half. That's what you do. And I have to admit, when I saw that, when he won that coin toss and took that elected to receive in the first quarter, you were the first person I thought of. This has probably got Louie Tee spinning in his seat. But it's a fun argument to have. Would we made the Super Bowl if we would have had an above-average defense? I think there were some things that would have kept us out. But man, anything's possible, really.
Yeah, I think what where I'm going with this is, if obviously we had the red zone, and there's a whole other aspect of it. Were we bad in the red zone? Yes, but guess what? We were taking way more trips to the red zone than most other teams. So it's like you're saying, you failed this many times. Well, guess what? We have more chances than other teams. But I'm just saying this off of a aspect of, if our defense was holding people to field goals, if we were giving our offense the ball back, we have more chances to fix the red zone. It's what I'm trying to get here. The point here is that maybe we fix some of our other problems with not having more problems that we are, focusing on because of our defense. And also, what did we do this year? The too early onside kick, straight up, we did it because of our defense. Having this bad of a defense changed. Right. You could see it. Jay Gruden had to do things. He wouldn't want to. Obviously, Jay Gruden would still do those things because he's that type of coach, but he doesn't want to kick an onside kick, that early in the game. You know what I mean? So it's just I have the feeling that we could have improved other aspects of our offense if our defense wasn't the glaring issue we had.
I agree. I mean, you could tell that some things that Jay Gruden did, including what BFG alluded to, which is taking the ball first, was basically because the defense was so damn bad. So he's like, well, maybe if we get the ball first, maybe we'll be able to, get off to a good start. But I'm always a defer guy till the second half, and so like you said, Redskins Review, we did take a ton of trips to the red zone, and if we would have got more stops, if we would have been able to get teams to kick field goals in the red zone instead of always scoring touchdowns, maybe it would have changed some of the things that we did offensively. But
how many games this year did we score less than 20 points? What was it, like 2 or 3?
Yeah.
I mean, come on, man. Look at some of the other teams that are not, how many times did that happen to them? And
Right.
the thing, we're letting other teams score on us, score more points than us. So
right. It's one of those situations that's really frustrating because if the defense was better, we would have been at least talking about the Redskins as a playoff team for sure. No doubt about that. Stephen Gomez says, I know this question isn't about defensive coordinators in the draft, but out of curiosity, when do you think we will win the Super Bowl? That's a really hard question to answer, man. Like, I don't know if any of us on this panel has the answer to that, man. I'm sorry. I mean, I'll ask anyway, but BFG, you got any answer for that? I mean,
oh man, in order for us to do it in the next 2 or 3 years, we'd have to hit on so many different cylinders that have taken so long to fire that, I mean, we would have to hit on a lot of different aspects as a franchise, and some of that stuff just hasn't been done even during the Joe Gibbs era. So I think in order for us to be taking a look at a really, really good run at the Super Bowl, if we're smart with what it is we're going to be doing, we're not going to be doing it in the next 2 years. We're not going to be doing it, by the end of Jay Gruden's contract or Scott McLuhan's. And I'm not even throwing in Kirk Cousins in that scenario. But if we give these guys an extension and act like I said before, develop a foundation, we've got a real good shot because you're keeping those individuals in house. Those individuals are keeping other people in house, and you're developing a concept and an idea of what you want your future to be. I heard on the radio a couple weeks ago where they were discussing the fact that we missed the playoffs. And one of the unfortunate aspects of missing the playoffs was the fact that, you don't get to establish the fact that you're a winning franchise. Having gone to the playoffs 2 years, that was something I didn't take into consideration. So I'm not going to give credit to that. But Chris Cooley had mentioned that on his show, that one of the unfortunate aspects of not making the playoffs is you can't come back and tell people, hey, come play for the Washington Redskins, because we're trying to change who it is that we are. We're trying to develop a winning concept. Take a look at us. We just went to the playoffs 2 years in a row. The sun's rising with this football franchise. You'll come play with us, come be a part of what it is that we're doing here. And you're going to draw some attention from some of the really, really good talent out there to want to come play for you because they see you on the rise. That was one of the unfortunate aspects. And unfortunately, you're going to need some of that to be able to get you to that next step, to get you to that plateau. You've got to develop a winning concept. And it's more than just saying it, man. It's doing it. You got to be able to do it. In my opinion, how you do that is you solidify the positive foundation that's there. You don't pull the coaching carousel. You don't sign a bunch of free agents to a lot of money when they're old, past their prime. I'm hoping those days are behind us. So in my opinion, when we expect to go to a Super Bowl, that's a really, really tough question, but I can guarantee it's probably not going to be next year or the year after. But if things work out for us, it'll be, it should be in the next 5 years. So,
Redskins, you want to take a shot at that or no?
Yeah, I think it's much closer than people think, and I understand how many times that we've been sitting here saying, "Oh, it's going to be closer than you think," or now we got Josh Norman on our team, which came here because we went to the playoffs and we seemed like we're a team going on the rise. But I mean, we just talked about the defense. We just talked about some of the things. I think it all comes down to there's going to be a timer here. If we have Kirk Cousins back, I mean that I think that significantly makes us closer. I mean, just look at it when we didn't have a quarterback. We weren't relevant at all. If we sign Kirk back, I think it speeds up the process some. And if this was 15 years ago, I wouldn't be saying this. But Scott McClellan, like I said earlier, he knows this game is different. The football is not the same football we grew up watching. It's about scoring points now. When you kick a touchback, you get it on the 25, not the 20 anymore. The NFL wants more people to watch. They want more points scored. This is now becoming an offensive league. Sure, some of the best teams still have the best defenses in the league, but look what happened to Seattle when Julio Jones, I'm not sure if Julio Jones even played that game versus them, but the Atlanta Falcons just overpowered them right away. Just overpowered them. And there's so many more calls on defense now. I think if we continue with Gruden and like BFG said, we don't do the coaching carousel thing, which I think we've learned. Even though we just got rid of Mike Shanahan, and I mean that just kind of screams coaching carousel. But I think we can all wake up and we see the direction that we're going. And if we keep Jay Gruden and if we keep Kirk Cousins and we have that foundation, which, like everyone says, defense wins championships, but the league is changing. Now it's about points now, scoring them points. And I think if we don't get rid of either Jay Gruden or Kirk Cousins in the next couple of years, I think that significantly makes our chances way higher. If we get rid of one or two of them, I mean, it just resets the clock. We've been resetting the clock how many times now? So we need some type of continuity, and that's one of the reasons why I love Kirk Cousins, because, like I said, the guy takes hits, he gets right back up, and he learns from his mistakes. I think his entire career is going to look like these past 2 years, where, remember, the first 2-3 couple games, he started off really slow, and then when he gets in a rhythm in the system that he's in, and he gets in that rhythm, he played better than anyone in the entire NFL, even better than Tom Brady the last 8 games of 2 seasons ago, where him and Jordan Reed were just going off. No one could stop them. I mean, they were the best two dynamic duo in the entire NFL. If we just continue to get some more talent, if we draft some more Sua Cravens of the world, I mean, it's way quicker. It's way sooner than we would think. But I mean, man, there's 32 teams out there. You never know, man.
I wish I had an intricate or elaborate answer like the two of them. I don't. My thing is, if we keep Kirk Cousins, we'll be a lot closer to winning a championship than if we got rid of him. But it's anybody's guess. I can't tell you when the hell we're going to win. I mean, I've been a Redskins fan my entire life, and my team hasn't even been close to making it to the Super Bowl since I was 5, okay? Like, the last real chance we had was 1999, and we probably weren't a Super Bowl team that year either. But, who knows, if we beat Tampa, maybe we can go to St. Louis and win. I doubt it, but that's nor here nor there. Bottom line is, I can't tell you anything. I don't know. DMV Pride 10 says, we don't have the personnel to run the 3-4. Drafting Preston Smith was the worst move ever by Scott. Can't have every linebacker in the 3-4 scheme be super slow. I've talked about the lack of team speed on defense for quite some time now. It's probably the most frustrating thing to me defensively. We can talk about the lack of talent, the lack of elite players, all that good stuff. How about just being fast for a change? How about not allowing Dak Prescott to run a bootleg and outflank us even if we know it's coming? How about not being a team that gets fooled by something but has enough athleticism to regroup and get back into play instead of, oh, you get fooled, so now the slowest white tight end in the league, Jason Witten, is able to run for 25 yards. It's so frustrating that we're just so slow on defense, period. We have no speed at all on our defense, at linebacker, on the defensive line. Hell, even our secondary is slow. Josh Norman is not fast, okay? Josh Norman is really attentive. He's great at playing different coverages. He does a really good job of sticking to receivers down the field and recognizing route combinations. but he's not a blazer. We don't have any. Rashad Breeland, not fast. We know that. We don't have any dynamic nor elite speed players, but just getting faster on defense. Lorenzo Simpson says, all I wanted was a defensive coordinator like Greg Williams, a man who's going to blitz, making quarterbacks tough to throw against us. I would have loved to have had Greg Williams back. I would have loved to have had a number of different guys. Wade Phillips was the number one for me. But bottom line is our job wasn't attractive, and we talked about that already. Lorenzo Simpson also says, with the first round pick, who do you draft? We've talked about that. BFG said he would take someone on the defensive side of the football, specifically a pass rusher or a guy in the secondary, possibly safety or corner. I said that I would take something in the front seven, a pass rusher, a defensive lineman, or a linebacker. So says you. What would you do with our first pick? What do you think and perceive to be our biggest weakness, Redskins Review? With that first pick in the draft, let's say the Redskins don't do anything in free agency. What do you deem the biggest need for this team? And at 17, forget about who's on the board, forget about all that stuff. If the Redskins could take the best player available at any position, what would it be in your mind?
Yeah, our GM says all the time to take the best player available, but we need to wake up and kind of pull a move. What we did, choosing a sheriff, at number one. We need to build in the trenches, man. We need defensive linemen. Whoever someone either can plug some holes up, or someone who's going to get after the quarterback, or do both. We need to build in the trenches. We've been bullied in the trenches way too often. I love the pick even though, a lot of Redskins fans weren't happy that we picked an offensive lineman for sheriff and everything, but man, has it paid off, man. He might not be the greatest player, but he doesn't miss snaps. He doesn't miss games. I mean, he's just getting better and better. We need to do the same thing, but on the defensive side of the ball. So that's where I think we would go. But hey, I thought we were going to do that last year, and we went wide receiver. So who knows, man?
Yeah, you don't know. It's a tough call, but I like I told you earlier in the program, at the top of the program, I said I would take Dalvin Cook if he was available at 17. I wouldn't have a problem with that. So we need defensive help. There's no doubt about it. But it's best player available. Obviously, we've talked about that before. We got 10 minutes left. It's 11:20 Eastern Standard Time. We got 10 minutes left, so we'll try to get as many comments in here as possible. Corey Fitterman says, thanks, Burgundy Fly Guy. I would love to do Redskins videos like y'all. Hopefully I will this season coming up and join y'all. So BFG, you over here inspiring potential future Redskin vid makers, man. Continue to do that. Also,
well, to kind of emphasize on that, I've got, I've had videos in the past where I have interviewed other vid makers, and I have already reached out to a couple vid makers on YouTube, and I've got a couple interviews that I'm sequestering, and that's kind of going to be my focus. Is I'm going to talk to guys that have been in the field, that have been doing it for a while. I've already interviewed you, Louie Tee, and that's in my playlist. Go look that up on my channel, where I interview vid makers. We don't necessarily talk so much about football as we talk about pretty much the video making process. So if you are an aspiring vid maker, try to go on and watch some of those videos, or ask questions if you want. Try to figure out what it's going to take to get out there. Because I think I've gotten some pretty good input from some of the people that I've interviewed in the past. I got a lot more people that I definitely want to interview in the future. So I am going to start that back up here in a couple of weeks. So look forward to that.
Yeah. That's a really great series, guys. If you haven't checked it out, 1v1 is awesome, because like Burgundy Fly Guy said, look, it's not rocket science to this thing. A lot of people tell themselves all kinds of nonsense as to why they don't start their own channel and get up and do their own videos, but it's really not hard. All you need is a camera and the confidence to do it, honestly speaking. Yep. And just about every device that you have has a camera on it these days. So it's really no excuse. If you want to do it, you can, and people will listen. You got a voice, people will listen. It may take some time to build up an audience, but they will come if you continue to churn out products. So Corey Fitterman also says, we can afford to keep Kirk, if we work out a long-term deal with him, we will have $66 million in cap space. Like I said, Redskins have the third most rollover cap space in the league. So we got plenty of money. If they can get a long-term deal with him, we'll have plenty of money to not only sign him, Pierre back, but then we'll also still be able to attack the defensive side of the football if need be, which we know is definitely a necessity this offseason. DMV Pride 10 says, the Redskins front office unintentionally saved a lot of money last free agency by not going after any D linemen. Now they have loads of money to afford Kirk. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Kansas City might even have Don Terry Poe up this year. And I don't know if they're going to be able to re-sign him or not. So, I mean, there's some free agents out there. A.J. Boye, a cornerback for the Houston Texans, he's really good. I don't know what the Redskins are going to be targeting in free agency and what they're looking to spend, but there may be some options. I'm going to delve into free agency at some point and give you guys the rundown as to who's available and who should be at the top of our wish list a little bit later on as we get past the Super Bowl and into the offseason. Says Eagle Speed says, I like what the Redskins did this offseason so far by firing everyone on the defensive side, which tells me the team isn't going to play around in 2017. Watch out. They didn't quite get rid of everyone, but they did get rid of a lot of guys that they felt like weren't doing their job at a high enough level. Jolt EXE 24 says, pay the man. I understand BFG's sentiments, and he brings some solid points, but without Kirk, we are back to being the bottom feeders in the division and in the NFL. Let's build around him. He also says we need to do to get better on hitting on draft picks and free agents and developing our players. I agree with BFG on that, and I do as well. I think both of those are solid comments. BFG said that very eloquently, that we have to do a better job of not only drafting players, but developing those players and keeping them once we do develop them. Stop drafting guys and developing them to go somewhere else and be successful. Keep them here in-house and start building that way.
I think watching what happens to Breland, man, we need to watch what happens to him, man, because the old Redskins, he would be gone soon. You know what I mean? But he's like I made the one video. He's a guy who's showing us talent. Mm-hmm. We know he's done it before. Why can't we get it out of him again? And that's ties into exactly what BFG said. We need to not give up on some of these guys so quickly and watch them over on go to the playoffs on the Raiders this year or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Even though they didn't have a good defense, they're still going to the playoffs on another team. And we had them in our building.
Well, one of the things I wanted to mention also to kind of to cap off that comment that I had made earlier, just to throw a couple names out there for you guys: Deshaun Gomes, Brandon Thomas. We've also got Jordan Bernstein. We've got David Amerson. We've got Philip Thomas, Bakari Rambo. You guys remember some of those names? Where are they now? Are they on this football team helping us out? No, we do not draft very well. Hopefully the induction of Scott McGloin, we can bring in some talent that we can actually cultivate on this football team and be able to help us out, on the football field and move beyond that rookie contract. I'm tired of us throwing away draft picks and individuals that are gone. Some of these guys were gone before their rookie deals were even up. We just cut them from the football team. So that is one of the most frustrating aspects about watching football and being a fan of a football team that does this is you throw your hat in on an individual and then have it go away. That David Amerson pick really, really upset me because I wanted the Honey Badger on with that pick. He was available at that pick, and the whole marijuana issue dropped him down. That was a guy that I definitely wanted. And without benefit of hindsight, obviously he's got injury issues, but still, he would have been a much better pick than David Amerson. But you know what? I didn't know that much about this kid out of North Carolina State, and I was hoping that he was going. That's a pretty high draft pick, man. He went number 2. It was the second draft pick of the 2013 season, and I don't think he made it to 2015. So I hate watching us waste these draft picks, man. I want to bring some people in here and cultivate them. So you're looking at guys like Kendall Fuller. You're looking at guys like Bashard Breeland. There are some potential in those individuals, definite potential. But what do we got to do to cultivate those guys to make them become better? Because it's there, but if we don't change our history in developing this talent, it's just going to be 2018, 19, 20, safety corner, safety corner, safety corner. How many times are we going to waste draft picks in this position before we finally get it right?
And I got a couple of comments for you, BFG, that I'm going to allow you to address. DMV Pride 10 says, to counter BFG's point, about forgetting about the quarterback position and focusing on the defense, he should refer to the last 20 years of Redskins football after our last Super Bowl win. And then Lorenzo Simpson says, I've been a fan for 20 years. I've seen the Mark Brunells, the Jason Campbells, John Becks, Rex Grossmans, and the list keeps going on and on. You're telling me you're willing to let a top 10 quarterback walk out. So your thoughts on that, BFG?
I go back 30 years, and the last time I saw the Washington Redskins win a Super Bowl, we didn't have a salary cap going on then. So we could, and our successes as a football franchise came when it pretty much mattered how rich your owner was. So you could throw all kinds of money at the situation and solve your problem really quick from season to season. But then the league changed. The league changed to a salary cap style system, and you don't have all the money in the world to play with. So that's the only thing. I'm not, and again, I've talked about this before, and I'll say it again, that it's not the fact that I think Kirk sucks. It's not the fact that I don't think he can get us to the promised land. I am not saying that. If we sign him to this deal, I'm not going to be, crying, salted tears wanting us to get rid of him. I will congratulate the guy. I'll post out a video making it sound, and I'll definitely say, hey, I'm glad to have him along. Let's move on to the future. What I am saying is that I don't know if I'm willing to pay that kind of money that we've backed ourselves into. That's a heavy price tag. That's a heavy, heavy cap hit. And there are football teams that pay that cap hit that are not successful. There's only one out of the top 4 or 5 that are able to do it, and that's the Green Bay Packers. We are not the Green Bay Packers. Okay, I don't want to be the Baltimore Ravens. I don't want to be the Indianapolis Colts. I don't want to be the New Orleans Saints. I want to be more of a team that is smart with their money. And I don't necessarily know if I would throw that kind of money at Kirk. That's really all that I'm saying in regards to that.
And we're going to throw this last comment out to both of you guys, and then we're going to wrap this thing up. And you can tell the people where they can find you guys on your respective channels and social media. I think this is a really hot topic as well. So I want to touch on this before we get out of here. Vance Valencia says, any chance the 49ers will give us 2 first-rounders for Kirk Cousins? He says, I just got here, so it's probably discussed already. It actually has not, and we do need to touch on this before we get out of here. And so I wanted to ask to both of you, the assumption right now, and I'll go ahead and set the table, and I'll let you guys dig in. The assumption right now is that in San Francisco, the job basically has Kyle Shanahan's name on it, which he will probably bring his dad on board in the front office in some capacity. They'll go in. They don't have a quarterback. They don't have a lot of things right now. They got a clean slate that they're basically working with, and they're not bashful nor ashamed of the fact that they don't have a quarterback, and they'll be willing to give up 2 first-rounders necessarily if that's what it's going to take to get a guy that they love in Kirk Cousins in San Francisco to give them a fighting shot over the next couple of years as they try to rebuild the 49ers back into a powerhouse. Do you think that the 49ers would be willing to give up 2 first-round picks for Kirk Cousins? I talked about this on one of my videos already, that the type of tag the Redskins put on Kirk Cousins will be very telling. If Scott McCloughan wants to retain the services of Kirk Cousins and is really interested and really trying to find a way to work out a long-term deal with him while slapping him with the franchise tag, then he will put the exclusive franchise tag on him, which will not allow another team to swoop in, even with picks, to try and get him. If they put that non-exclusive franchise tag on him, which would allow a team like the 49ers to offer up 2 first-rounders and get Kirk Cousins, that tells me that they're willing to part ways with him, in my mind at least. How do you guys feel about this situation? We'll start with Redskins Review on this one, and then we'll go to BFG. Do you think that it is possible that the Redskins would dangle Kirk Cousins out to a team, say, like the 49ers or, say, the Houston Texans, who may feel like they're a quarterback away, or in the 49ers case, a guy that has coached him already in this league and is confident that he can be a big-time quarterback in this league? Do you think the Redskins would entertain 2 first-round picks? Would you entertain 2 first-round picks? And do you see that as something that could be a possibility over the next couple of months as we get near the draft?
I hope it's not, but now that we pretty much know the Shanahans, because like you said, they'll probably both have their hand in something going on over there. Originally, I would say Mike Shanahan would advise not to do that because he was vocal and said he did not want to do that for our G3.
Mhm.
But we all know Mike Shanahan, and obviously that's going to trickle down to Kyle Shanahan. Mike Shanahan sitting here saying, "Haha, I told you about that Kirk boy. I told you, I knew this from the very get-go." So I think that might sway him to actually put an offer like that on the table. But I would hopefully our franchise is smart enough to not take that. I mean, even though if we get 2 first-round picks, and we all know our GM loves more picks, we all know that he tries to get as many picks as he can, and he would love 2 first-round picks. But man, we are setting ourselves back. We cannot afford to set ourselves back now that we have some relevancy within the NFL, and even friends of mine, who, like I said, I live here in Baltimore. All my friends are either Baltimore fans or somehow Pittsburgh fans. I don't know. All of them look at the Redskins now as a different team. Even though we didn't go to the playoffs or whatever, the Baltimore Ravens didn't either. But all the Ravens fans, they're looking over at us and seeing Kirk Cousins play, and they're going, "Damn, you got something there." And it was not that way before. They were joking about us until we beat them this year, and they don't have anything to say back to us. Now they're looking at our team and going, "Hey, they're building, they're doing something." If we let that go, I mean, just like I said before, we're setting ourselves back years to our goal, which is the Super Bowl. We're just setting it back and setting it back. I would hope that we are not that dumb to let him go for 2 first-round picks, because like the whole question for the whole entire Kirk thing is, okay, so we're gonna go down the road where we do let him go. Then what? Who do we get? Well, there's just such an unknown. We're going to draft somebody. There's everyone. You ask people on Facebook, they're going to say, "Hey, let's start Nate Sudfeld, a guy who never even played under center 1 snap in college or whatever. He played out of shotgun the entire time there." People on Facebook want him to start over Kirk Cousins. I mean, we have to be smart enough to keep him. There's no way. Whatever picks they try to give us, it's not worth it to us. We already have We have what do we have? 8, 9 picks or something like that this year.
9. Yep.
Yeah, we can't go chasing, setting ourselves back. We can't afford it.
So BFG, do you think that the Redskins would dangle him out there? Do you think Scott McCloughan would dangle him out there? Would you yourself take 2 first-round picks? And remember, the 49ers are a bad football team right now, and they may be bad even with Kirk Cousins. We know their first-round pick this year is the number 2 pick in the draft. They could be bad again, and it could be a top 10 pick yet again with the services of Kirk Cousins. That's still not a really good football team in San Francisco. What says you? 2 first-round picks for Kirk Cousins, yes or no, and should the Redskins do that?
Well, I've been saying it for the last couple of years that I didn't necessarily know Kirk Cousins' place on this football team back when we had Robert, on the football team, and he was somebody that I would have tried to have dealt out much early on. Unfortunately, the circumstances didn't necessarily play out that way, and we've had to rely on the services of Kirk Cousins. And obviously, his star has begun to rise in the football league, and that comes at a premium. And right now, if the San Francisco 49ers were to dangle 2 first-round draft selections for him, I think that would be an out as far as part of my argument for not keeping Kirk. I would rather get something for him as opposed to just letting him walk, obviously, and clearly putting him on another franchise tag deal would be probably one of the strategies this football team would try to work out. But actually, no, if we ended up signing him to a deal, then we could obviously trade him out. But that's if we don't sign a no-trade clause with him. Honestly, 2 first-round draft picks is a game changer, in my honest opinion. Now, I'm not talking about moving up. I am not interested in moving up from number 17 to number 2. That's not going to do it for me. You're going to have to pony up two draft picks. So I'm looking to pick them 3 times out of the draft in the first round. That would be something that would be acceptable to me. But I can tell you right now, I don't even think that is something that the Shanahans would entertain. And Redskins Review brought it up. It was something I was going to mention, but he had mentioned it first. They've already made this mistake. They've already done this. They've already mortgaged their future on a quarterback, and look how that worked out for them. So I think that 2 first-round draft selections is great for helping your team rebuild in San Francisco. Would you be willing to give that up? For a guy who's going to come in, who's already proven, who's already a great quarterback. I mean, they might. I just don't necessarily see them doing that. I think they still have a bad taste in their mouth from the Robert Griffin, era. So would I do it? Man, to tell you the truth,
it's pretty tempting. I see
it's
you
a tough.
there.
2 first-round draft selections, man. That's, like I said, it's a game changer with Scott McLuhan behind it. Now, obviously, if we had other individuals from years past in that general manager spot, I'd say no, because we're not very good at those first-round draft selections. But with a Scott McLuhan at GM, I hate to say it, guys, but I would very, very highly entertain that option. If that opportunity presented itself and San Francisco was saying, here's 2 of our first-round draft selections for you, what do you say?
I think we need to take a close look at the Rams right now, too, though, who got our draft selections. So they're still looking for a quarterback.
I think that BFG echoes the sentiments of a lot of people that it's pretty tempting, to say the least.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I would say no. Even though I look at those 2 first-rounders, like if Scott McLuhan doesn't believe that Kirk Cousins is better than the 12th or 13th best quarterback in the league and will never be, then you make that deal. If you think this is Kirk's upside and he's not going to get any better and this is as good as he's going to be and he's going to make the mistake at the end of a game, yada, 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 then you make that deal. But I like to think that Kirk is going to get better. I like to think that Kirk is going to find ways to create off schedule. Maybe he won't, but it's his job to build around him and make this team better so that Kirk, every time he makes a mistake, it's not spotlighted or it's not the biggest topic of discussion. I mean, again, we find our way talking about Kirk Cousins, this and that in the Giants game, but I mean, the defense was horrible in that game yet again, and we weren't able to generate any kind of rush offense, and it was on Kirk's shoulders yet again. So I think the 49ers would definitely give up 2 first-round picks, because I think you said the reason why they would do it, BFG. They know the commodity that they're getting this time. The difference here is that when they traded for Robert Griffin III, Mike Shanahan was vehemently against it because he's like, look, he's a college kid. He didn't play in a pro-style offense. We'd have to really, really coach him up. And it would take some time. And if you're willing to give me the time to work with this kid, I can turn him into a pro-style quarterback, but it's going to take time. And with Kirk Cousins, they know what they're getting right away. They know the commodity they're getting. They've worked with Kirk, very intimately. They've been in his corner from day one. I think they would shell out 2 first-rounders in a heartbeat, because in their mind, they're thinking, hey, you can have our first-rounder this year. That next first-rounder isn't going to be in the top 10. We're going to be a much better team because Kirk Cousins is our quarterback. And we have a good run game, and our defense is better than people think, and we've been spending resources on that side of the ball. It's almost, to be honest, in San Francisco right now, it's almost the Seattle Seahawks model all over again. They've drafted nothing but young defensive football players for the last 3 years as that ship was steadily sinking. But they've got talent on defense. They got a running back. Their offensive line needs to be revamped, but they've got stuff. They need a bunch of skill guys at receiver and tight end and things of that nature. But you look at their team, it's chock full of defensive players that have the ability to become really big stars in this league. And if they could just get a quarterback, they could be dangerous. And I think that's why they would be willing to dangle out 2 first-rounders for the services of Kirk Cousins. So it's a dicey situation, no doubt about it. If the Redskins believe in Kirk Cousins, it won't even come to that. But if they don't, and as we know, there's always been a semblance of dissension in the Redskins front office as to whether Kirk has been the guy or not. I don't know, guys. I'm going to tell you right now, 2 first-round picks for a guy that loves to acquire picks and Scott McLuhan, man, if you're a Redskins fan, you should be uneasy about this situation. I'll say that much.
Yep.
But with that being said, I want to thank everyone out there for watching and chiming in. It's been a great Redskins discussion tonight. And I want to thank my 2 guests on the panel tonight, Redskins Review and BurgundyFlyGuy. I mean, 2 of my favorite Redskin vid makers. I want to give them the opportunity and the floor to tell you guys where you can find them on different social media platforms and well, you guys need to subscribe to their channels. Like I've said on numerous occasions, these guys are doing it just as well as anyone up here when we're talking Redskins football. So I'm going to give the floor to my man BFG. You tell everybody where they can find you, and then I'm going to give the floor to my man Redskins Review to do the same.
Well, you can find me on Twitter at BurgundyFlyGuy, and you can also go onto YouTube. If you just type in the search field BurgundyFlyGuy, I'm pretty much the only person that's on there with that name. So it's not hard to find me. You can select me. You can find me on YouTube just using the search engine there, and that's pretty much the only two platforms that I really use. I am on Facebook, but I don't really use Facebook to communicate a whole lot with people. I've done a little bit of communication with individuals that leave comments on my videos. If you have a message for me, you can either send it in a comment on the video, or you can send it to me on Twitter. I've been communicating with some individuals with private messaging on Twitter. So that's pretty much the two areas that you can find me.
And make sure, guys, when you look up BFG, no spaces. No spaces.
Yes,
on
so one word.
BurgundyFlyGuy.
Spelled pretty much the way it sounds.
Yep. And Redskins Review, please bless the people and tell them where they can find you.
Hey, well, I'm not up with the time, so I don't really use Twitter. Twitter is just like a bunch of flooding of stuff whenever I get on there. But I'm only here on YouTube right now. If you just type in Redskins Review, you'll find me, or you'll find one of my videos. And just one thing I gotta say is, I started this whole YouTube thing in general just because, I could sit here and I could talk about the Redskins all day. And I could sit here and it could get no views and no one would watch it or no one would comment. And that's okay with me because I just love talking about the Washington Redskins. But my channel is so much better with all these guys commenting on the videos, and we come together as a community and actually talk and converse and, ask each other what we think about something, get alternate angles of what's going on. And you guys know, if you write a comment on my channel, I will respond to it. It's getting a lot harder now because I get a lot more comments, and
Right.
Normally what I do is I get an email that goes, whenever I get a comment, it goes to my email and I respond that way. But I've had to go through now and go through all my videos and go through every single comment to get back to your guys' comments because my email is just getting flooded with them, and sometimes it's not sending them all. So that's my big thing is if you comment on my videos, I will comment back because that's what I want as a community. I want everybody to have their opinion. Even if we don't agree, we don't have to agree. And that's it.
Yeah, I too used to do that. I'm trying to get back into that. That's a good habit to practice, responding to comments. When I first started out, man, I was on it, man.
Yeah.
But as you get more and more of them, it becomes harder and harder to keep up with all the comments. So I'm definitely going to try to get back on that because I love conversing with the YouTube community, with the viewers out there, because whether it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard or it's the smartest comment I've ever read, it's all the same to me. You know what I mean? So come one, come all. I thank everyone out there for watching. And as I always tell you guys, man, we're all family, man. It's a big brotherhood out here. If you're a Redskin fan, then you're a brother in arms, as I always tell you guys. I am a Redskin fan, etched in burgundy and gold. My Redskin spirit will never die. Redskin spirit will never fold until we meet again. Hail to our beloved Redskins. Want to thank once again BFG, Burgundy Fly Guy, and my man Redskins Review for joining me on the Redskins Report Round Table discussion, State of the Redskins Address. I'm your man Louie Tee, signing off for BFG, for Redskins Review. You guys have a great night. Thanks for joining us again. See you next time.